going on. They called a travel on my boy Moby. I don't know. What do you guys think? Leave some comments. I don't think it was a travel. I think he was getting fouled in the corner and just fell down, and when he fell, the ball fell out of his hand. It's not a... leave a comment. Leave a comment. It's 7 a.m. Alright guys, I'm exhausted. I'm about to shower and try to edit this. I might pass out, I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't much of like a whole vlog today. It was more of just, we went and filmed some basketball videos, but I'm gonna do more than just go to the gym and play basketball. It's just the last couple days have been like, all of our sleep is like messed up from all these videos every day. Comment or tweet me any ideas you guys got for if we do go to the gym and play some basketball stuff, or for going out and doing random stuff. Just leave comments or any challenges you guys might want to see, anything like that. Yo, thank you guys. Subscribe if you're new, by the way. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace. Yeah, Moby, this is your first time in the same room?
Ever? Take off your pants.
No, I just trying to get everyone involved. Obviously not the score, but I think I was a pretty good passer as well.
He's 6'6", he's the senior. Look. That makes it easy as shit. Short as shit. Tap his ass. That shit was hella good. Do your bitch, shigga, diggy, sucking titties. Fast as shit. Real quick. joking. No joke. He ain't gonna do that in airball, you fucking nut. This is quick as shit. I'm gonna take one dribble and get the fuck out of there.
Big shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Use my promo code.
Okay. Gotta fast, take it back as I can rap. White boy on the mic and a mic snap. Hold the man too cold where the ice at. Mike Wayne where the rice at. Okay, and I'm doing it crazy. I'm doing it all day, baby. I'm doing it all day.
Yeah, if you guys want to see me get lit like that again, make sure to follow me on Twitch, man. If you're not following me on Twitch, then what are you doing? You're missing out on...
I'm going in all.
You're missing out on ISO Bull going live, alright? Yo, what's going on, guys? Cole the Man here, and I'm back with another video, alright? Now today is kind of a sad day, man. Today, as you guys can see by the title and by the thumbnail, I am going to be releasing every single dribble animation on my 6'7" shot maker. If you guys want to know this build, that link will be in the description down below, alright? Now, before I start the video, I want to go ahead and give credit where credit is due. I got every single one, not every single one, a few I mixed up on my own, but most of these dribble animations, I got it from my boy Steezo, the God, aka Steezo, the God of AIDS. Alright? Now listen, his link is in the description down below. In my opinion, he is by far the best dribbler on this game. Alright? I learned a lot of these moves from him. So I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. I always give credit where credit is due. So shout out to him. His link is in the description down below. Make sure to go check him out. He's a very good dribbler, alright? ISO Kings, we on top, baby, alright? Now listen, if you guys want to see me dribble live like this, make sure to go ahead and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/olderman_TW. That link will be in the description down below. Make sure to go follow me on there. And as you guys can see, my face is on the screen. These are just from past broadcasts, so yeah, that's why you see my sexy face. Look at me, just, oh my, where are you going? Pulling up a tree and I make it. Woo wee, it's too lit out here, bro. Alright, anyways, like I said, I'm going to be showing you guys all my dribble animations today, so let's go ahead. Alright guys, the time is here. Going to be showing you guys all my dribble move animations. I'm using normal 3, moving crossover, simple 1. Next, I'm using Pro 3 behind the back. This is what gives you that sexy animation right there, right? Next, I'm using the Pro 4 spins. That is what gives you that sexy animation right there, alright? Now, I'm using Pro 5 moving hesitations, pretty simple. Next, I'm using Elite 27 rhythm dribble. You can either use this, what I'm using right now, or you can use Elite 26, alright? Steezo uses Elite 26, but I like Elite 27 a lot more. I'm using Pro 3 size up package. By far one of the best. It is the best in the game in my opinion. Alright, Pro 3 size up package is really good. Kimball Walker size up. Ty Lawson size up or crossover combos. And I'm using Kobe Bryant size up between the leg combos. And Jamal Crawford behind the backs. Alright, now those animations are all my dribble move animations. They're pretty simple. Most of you guys probably already guessed. But yeah, next, I'm going to be showing you guys by far my favorite animation out of all my dribble moves, alright? Now, if you guys want this custom jump shot, drop a like on this video, man. This thing is nothing but greens, alright? Next, I'm using the Stephen Curry dribble pull-up, of course. I've been using that. Normal spin jumpers, as you guys can see right there, hop jumpers. I call them hop steps, whatever you want to call it. Normal 21 is by far the best one in the game. That is what gives me so much space. Like, look at this. It gives me so much space, you know, just to... I can fake my man out, I can get a 3, or I can do that hop step, and he thinks I'm going to shoot a 3, so he's going to step up and then do a momentum behind the back. So yeah, these animations are deadly, alright? You have to use these. These animations are amazing. Now listen, if you guys want a full dribble tutorial, like it might even be 20 minutes long, breaking down every move that I use it.
Starting today, when our customers buy the new Tostitos Yellow Corn Bite Size, we'll donate to their local Salvation Army.
YouTube, what's the deal, man? It's Odell One of you. Thank you for watching my videos. Hey, shout out to that first man in the comment section, man. Quick video. I had a comment from a subscriber from 2 days ago that hit me up, bro. And it's a very serious question, man. I talk about this in the party with my boys, and it's very serious, man. And he says, can you please talk about how every single playstyle has a badge that helps them do what they do except post scoring? Sharpshooters got catch and shoot, limitless range, corner specialist, mid-range, playmakers got anchor breaker, pick and roll dimer, shot creators, mid-range dead-eye, difficult shots, lockdowns, rim protector, D-stopper. Where's fade ace and post hook specialist? They playing hide and seek, man. I don't know why they would take that away from us. You know what I mean? For you guys that don't know what fade ace is and post hook specialist, I'll show you a clip back from 2K16. But before we get to that, let me ask you a question, man. You're like, oh, Dale, man, what the hell, man? You crying about this badge, man? What are you crying? Listen, man. Imagine a sharpshooter with no shooting badges. Sharpshooter, no shooting badges. That's what us post scorers are going through. A post scorer with no post fade badge, that's the main thing that a post scorer do. So that's what us post scorers is going through. Now let's take a trip back to 2K16 and look at some of these badges, man. Let's look at some of these. Here we go. Post hook specialist. Is this what you're talking about, John? Yeah, man. They had this badge. We had this badge. Post scorers had this badge, man. So just like a sharpshooter can shoot at a high percentage corner threes, we can do that too with post hook specialist. Also post operator. This is actually difficult shots now. This is bundled up into difficult shots now. So you have to be a shot creator, some type of shot creator, to pull this post operator off. Never mind my phone, okay? Also, post step back pro, also a part of difficult shots, okay? They took that away from us too. Post step back pro. This is one of our moves too. Now I'm just showing y'all it was more than just fade ace, alright? Now here go fade ace, alright? Fade ace can efficiently hit fadeaway jumpers in and out of the post. Now, this is difficult shots now. Now, that end part in the post, make it officially in the post, they took that away. Now you only can make it be efficient outside of post, which is, you know, just fadeaway, just running fades and stuff like that, dribble pull-ups and things like that. But fade ace was mainly used by post scorers, by the big men. And we had a boost to our post fade. Now, my question is, what happened? What happened? Why did 2K decide? Why did you guys decide? Mike Wayne, I'm talking from the perspective of a customer and a consumer, not a YouTuber, a customer and consumer that buy this game every year since 2K14. I've been buying this game, buying VC, spending money on this game, all right? And I look forward to playing with a post scorer. It's your customers talking to you, Mike Wayne, Zach Timberman. And, yeah, man, why y'all take it away? Now, you can't say that, okay, the post score would have been OP in 2K17, 2K18, because now look at sharpshooters. Super OP. Now, I'm not trying to hate on no archetype at all. I'm just saying that look at the sharpshooters, look at other archetypes, man. They OP and they build. They got everything that they need as far as, you know, they archetype. Playmakers got ankle, but they got the ankle breaker badge. Lockdown defenders got, you know, all their badges for them, you know, defensive stopper and stuff like that, pickpocket, rim protectors got, you know what I'm saying, the rim protector badge, and everything. And everybody got a badge for their specific archetype except for post scorers. What scoring badge do you have? Now look at our badge. Let's take a look at some of our badges, man. The only scoring badge we have is up and under specialist. And that's probably the worst badge that we have, man. Because anybody can do the up and under move. I made a sharp shot creator center, and I know how to do post moves, and I did the shimmy post move, and I still can shake a defender. You know what I mean? So even if you do the up and under move, and then the guy contests the shot, you don't excel. You post move, and I still can shake a defender. You know what I mean? So even if you do the up and under move, and then the guy contests the shot, you don't excel. You don't make that shot. You're gonna miss that shot. So you have to completely shake the guy and have a wide open view to the basket to even make it. So what's the point of that badge if you can't make, you know, contested, you know, layups after the up and under? You gotta shake it. Post spin technician. Now look at this. Dominates the post with spins and drive moves. That's putting you in a position. That's not a scoring badge. This is not a scoring badge, all right? This is to put you in a position to score. But can you finish? No. You can finish. Of course you can't finish, but there's no real boost to finishing. You gotta mix yourself with an athletic finisher to be able to be real dominant like that. Drop stepper, all right? This puts you in a position. Look, it gives you advantage, all right? Drop step moves to his advantage in the post. It just gives you an advantage, but it's not a scoring badge. All right, so we got one scoring badge, okay? Bruiser, you drain the energy of your defender, just for offense and defense, all right? But at the same time, to be honest, to really be honest, I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but I would rather trade this badge or up and under specialist. If I had it my way, I would trade bruiser badge for fade ace, and as a developer, I would redo up and under specialist to where is actually useful. Because doing that move is actually complicated to a lot of people. All right, brick wall, extremely good. This is a good badge. I wouldn't do nothing to that badge. I would keep that badge, but I would have fade ace for bruiser, and up and under specialist. I would, have them redo that because it's really useless. Because if you do up and under, you really have to shake the defender, have nobody in front of you to make the layup. You really have to have nobody in front of you. So what's the point? All right. Now look at like an athletic finisher, putback king. All right, known for his ability to score baskets immediately off an offensive rebound near the hoop. Scoring badge. It actually can score, man. Now this is some gameplay in Pro Am. Now if you watch this, I scored I think 49 points or 40-something points, and I only shot one post fade, just one throughout this entire video. Why? Because for a player that's playing with a post scorer, you need space, you need communication, you need all these things around you to even, score. But playing with randoms, if you take a post score build and play with randoms, it will be so hard to score or just do your job. All you'll be doing is sitting screens all day and it'll be so boring. But you are a scorer. You know what I mean? Now, if I had a fade ace badge and I'm posting up and the guys see me posting up down low, they can throw it to me real quick and I can do a quick post fade before the double team comes, because that's all they do is double team, right? But it's so frustrating playing with a post scorer by yourself, solo, with randoms. And you can play with other archetypes with randoms and really have no problem. The post scorers have the most problem, and that's why I say we need a scoring badge. Alright? If you agree with me, drop a like. If you disagree with me, drop a dislike. It's Odell103. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'm out.
Yeah, they're fucking blowing dick.
YouTube, what's the deal, man? It's Odell103. Thank you for watching my videos. Hey, shout out to the first man in the comment section and everybody else in the comment section, man. Alright, now this video is for badge grinders. If you're going up to your badge and you're slashing, this video is for you. Now I'm going to show you multiple ways to get these badges, alright? In every section is different ways to get the badges, and I'm going to go in detail on how to get these certain badges, man, step by step. Alright? So sit back, it is a long video. If you can't watch the whole video, watch one part, come back, and we'll get back to it, alright? Now look, very important, alright? Make sure your difficulty is on pro. We are going in my career, so make sure your difficulty is on pro, alright? And turn off your action replays and the cutscenes, alright? Because that takes more time. If you badge grinding, that take up a lot of time. So cut all those cutscenes off. Alright? And also for your coach settings, if you want to see all the plays that's going on, make sure your settings are just like this, so you can see all the plays that's going on. If you are not a point guard, if you can't control what the plays is going on and stuff like that, what plays is going on, alright? And make sure your controller settings are on absolute. If you're going for that posterizer badge, the acrobat and all this stuff, make sure your settings are like this, alright? So first thing we'll go over posterizer, relentless finisher, and one man fast break, alright? Now, make sure you got your contact dunks equipped if you're going for the posterizer badge. Some people make this mistake, alright? Get all your contact dunks, alright? And equip this moving crossover number 4. It will help you if you badge grinding, okay? I'm going to show you everything, alright? And also, you want to equip this right here, alright? Now look, you want to get your badge as fast as possible, alright? So, you're going to call for a screen while you full court, alright? You want to go on the right side or the left side of the court. And I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. I'm going to show you, I'm going to break it all the way down for you, okay? Now, if you see, I already called for a screen. Now the whole team is on the left side of the court, and the right side of the court is open for me to drive. Already, okay? Only been like 2 seconds, alright? Now, when you call for a screen, the guy that's the help defense guy is going to come up, all right? So that's why you want to call for a screen, and it brings the center out of the paint, all right? So before the screen is set, you want to do the normal forward crossover, right? All you gotta do is flick your right stick to your off-ball hand. Now, the help defense will come over and it's an automatic contact dunk and you got all this speed, all right? When you do that crossover, it's kind of like a little speed boost, and now you got all this speed and you catch a body. Very simple, very easy, man. Now, doing that crossover will get you the ankle breaker badge. It counts towards the ankle breaker badge, all right? So just know that. And if the man hits the screen, you also get pick and roll maestro at the same time, okay? Now, doing it this way, and the way I chose to do it this way, and show this way first, is because some people are not point guards, all right? So if you're not a point guard, if you're in your position, you're a slasher, you can do it this way, all right? This way is better for everybody. This way is universal, basically, right? So they go there behind the bag I was telling you. So if you ask for a screen, full court, the team move out the way for you, okay? If you ask for a screen in the middle, everybody move out to the corners. You ask for a screen on the left side, the team will move towards the...
Absolutely phenomenal.
There's a guy that can do it.
Yeah.
Steve Bay for sure.
Well, he's the champ. He's the champ for a reason.
Yeah,
But he's got a lot. So what do you think it is that makes you want to jump out of the house? Perhaps you can get airplane. You put a squirrel suit on.
Yeah. Do you think, this is what I asked you before, do you think that this is like you're fulfilling some sort of a desire for excitement, some need for extreme situations?
Well, so skydiving, jumping out of an airplane, is, to me, if you follow some very basic principles, you know, being current and maintaining your gear and taking your time to pack your parachute, the most difficult, or not the most difficult, the most dangerous portion of the day skydiving will be your drive to the drop zone and your drive home.
So what happens to those people that fuck up and die?
Well, there's two, so you gotta separate two categories. There's jumping out of an airplane with a main parachute and a reserve parachute and a lot of altitude and a lot of time. And then there's base jumping, which is off of a static object with one parachute,
Right.
generally closer to the ground. And that lack of altitude and separation from the ground gives you less time, less options. You gotta be really tight on your A game. In both of those worlds, what I think, and what my opinion is that kills the most people is complacency. There has not been a gear-related fatality as far back as I can really find it, at least in the last 10 to 15 years. It's people killing themselves, not the gear killing them.
How's that work? What do you mean? How do they kill themselves?
Getting in over your head, attempting a maneuver that you have no ability to recover from if it were to go wrong. In the skydiving world, so to use the wingsuit as an example, if you keep the suit flying straight, it feels incredibly stable. It feels like you're laying in an air mattress. It's not hard at all. But you literally get out of the aircraft and you spread your arms and legs out. There's ram air inlets that inflate the suit, and you can lay on it. You can literally just relax and lay in the suit, and you'd fly at 60% of your performance to make up a number that's probably somewhat accurate. But then, you know, maybe you want to fly on your back. You know, then,
Oh, Jesus.
then maybe you want to fly next to people. Then maybe you want to do an intricate formation that's both vertically and horizontally separated.
I've heard of people colliding while skydiving.
Yes.
It has catastrophic results, like limbs
Yeah.
get ripped off.
Yeah, there was a pair of Golden Knights that got decapitated. They didn't decapitate the guy from the pelvis down, cut off both legs. But you can get yourself going, you know, 100 miles an hour, forward speed. So you,
Cut off both legs.
Yep.
What hit what?
His head hit his, or shoulder hit his, I believe, the lower portion of his legs.
And what happened to the guy's shoulder?
He had a vacation in the hospital for a little bit, and the other guy died. Yeah. Actually, you know what? I think I might be wrong on that. I think the dude with no legs. I think the dude with no legs is the one who lived, because he jumped again. The guy who hit him is the one that died.
Fuck.
It's
jumped again after that.
yeah. Yeah, of course he did. It's like when you text me, you're like, would you do this shit in France into the plane? I'm like, don't ask me rhetorical questions.
Yeah,
I'm
I
in.
saw one that I was going to ask you. A guy was trying to get into the plane. He was doing the squirrel suit into the plane, but he missed.
Yeah, sometimes you miss.
And he bounced off the plane. It
Yeah.
didn't look good.
So that was the same Red Bull dudes, and that is probably the worst situation you could get into because you could see he was spinning in the suit,
Yes.
and that is how you can kill yourself in a wingsuit. If you try some crazy maneuver that you're not capable of doing, you essentially stall the suit, and then you end up on your back spinning out of control. You'll black out, and whatever happens, happens.
What happened to that guy that bounced off
He pulled it out.
the plane? He did?
He did because later in that video, yeah. I mean, but that is Fred and Vince. They're Red Bull dudes. They're at the absolute apex of what's possible, and yeah, I mean, he hit it. He was able to recover because later in that video, they were both able to successfully get in. But that guy has been jumping for decades and tens of thousands of jumps, so of course he can recover from that. If you got 10 jumps, you're dead. But
Yeah.
the problem is, people see that video and they're like, I know what I'm doing on Thursday, and they die. They do stupid shit, and
Yeah.
they're not aware of their ability or their skill, or they're just not looking in the mirror and being honest with themselves. They attempt something crazy. The most common in skydiving thing is somebody to die under perfectly functioning equipment. They'll have a really small main canopy, like most main canopies. The canopy you're suspended under in your harness when you're learning is about 300 to 360 square feet. It's like driving a school bus. It's really slow turns. It doesn't dive. And a lot of people try to get to these little postage stamp parachutes. They're 71 square feet, 69 square feet. And in those canopies, if you initiate a turn, regardless of what you do after that turn, you cannot pull the canopy out of the dive until it goes through its natural recovery arc. So if you initiate that turn 300 feet low, you're done. You'd be lucky to walk away with a set of powdered femurs, which is exciting to watch from the ground. It's a very interesting noise to hear happen. That's best case scenario. Middle of the ground would be wheelchair with a colostomy bag for the rest of your life. Worst case scenario, you're getting carted off in an ambulance and you're dead. And it's just a rush to get to that super small canopy, or you just started jumping.
So this is like a status thing? Guys want to show you that they're jumping with a super small canopy?
You ever see people in the mixed martial arts world who just started and they think they're ready for the cage?
Yes.
It's the exact same thing. I bet you it happens in motocross, surfing. Like, guy learns to surf, he's like, North Shore, let's go. I'm like,
Right.
excuse me, sir, you're using a foam surfboard that's 12 feet long. If you go to the North Shore, you're going to die. But nothing you say
Is
to
it
that.
easier to use a foam one that's 12 feet long?
I don't know. I don't know where it came from. Probably on a smaller way.
Maybe I should get a foam surfboard
But
12 feet long.
I think either way, though, on the North Shore, you're going to die. But till you try to tell that to that person, they don't want to hear it. They're
Right.
ready. And not only are they ready, I need to go to Best Buy and get about 4 GoPros, and then we're going to send this thing, and you're dead.
Mm.
And it presents this and it creates this. That's why I don't like to talk about the risk necessarily, because there is, in my opinion, a community of people that really romanticize that risk and they define themselves by that risk, where that's not for me, that's not what I'm looking for at all. But when it comes to skydiving, it's just fun, man. I cannot not smile when I'm flying that wingsuit. You're doing 120 miles an hour forward, face first.
You ever get a bug in the mug?
Oh yeah, you'll come down speckled, all sorts. I've almost hit a bird base jumping in Switzerland. Like, it's just,
Oh.
yeah, but again, there's a difference between skydiving and base jumping. Skydiving is, if you have enough experience and you learn that you can handle with most likely what's going to come up, you can just focus on having fun. Base jumping is a different activity, for sure. It looks the same. It's a different sport. I don't even call it a sport. It's an activity.
How many guys have you seen die?
Base jumping?
Base
Skydiving?
Skydiving. Squirrel suit.
In a squirrel suit, actually not that many. I have seen more people die under the super small canopies turning too low and just impacting the ground. I mean, it's a sight to be seen, where the canopy, it's in such a steep dive. Like, as the canopy's up top, as you pitch over, your body is actually above the canopy, so it hits and they pendulum into the ground. It's like wet meat on concrete. You know exactly, and you can hear it coming because the canopies whistle. The lines that suspend you underneath the canopy, they're cutting through the air, and you just hear it. You look up, and then wham. As far as actually physically watching people go in, made 2, I think. But my last trip to Switzerland in 2016, last year, I was in the valley with my buddy Alex, and we were there for 2 weeks, and 15 people went in.
15.
Yeah. Now,
How many people were there?
it's hard to say, and that's why, again, I think you have to be careful talking about the stats and the risk, because I don't really know how many people partake in that activity, but I can tell you this: of those 15, 0 were gear related. Not a single one was because their gear failed. It was, in my opinion, somebody attempting or just living. They're walking on a razor blade. And sometimes when I go over there, I will do that as well. I'll fly close to the ground, or I'll fly in between trees, or I'll fly through a crack and mess around with that. But I try to do it on a very limited time period. I try to have outs, and I try to work my way into that position. And what I have seen personally, which doesn't mean that this is the norm, what I have personally seen with my own eyes is people that don't take that route, and they want to go straight to just, hey, hold my beer. And there's just no room for error. And, yeah.
That's a lot of people, though. Like, what percentage of the people died? Like, how many people were there?
I don't know, probably a couple hundred. As far
Oh, Jesus.
well, that's just
A couple of 115 people croaked?
yeah.
That's a lot.
I
That's a lot.
again, I try to be honest. I accept the activity. Here's my thing: I don't ever want to gamble, but I am willing to take risk, and I know that activity has some risk associated with it. But for me personally, the benefit outweighs the risk, and I also spend most of my year trying to put in place things that can mitigate that risk, like jumping all the time, being current in my suit. And I'll walk away. Like, I've been at plenty of exit points where the weather wasn't good, or the wind wasn't good, or I just wasn't feeling it. And I think a lot of other people probably had the same feelings, and they're zipping up their suit, getting ready to go. I'm like, peace out, man. I'll see you later. I'm gonna go drink a bottle of red wine, have a blast. Yeah, I would love to be the base jumper that has walked away from more exits than anybody else on earth, more than I would like to be the base jumper that's done more extreme shit than anybody else on earth.
Like, how many times do you think you've walked away? How many times have you gotten to a situation where you're at the starting line, like, this doesn't feel right?
15, 20.
Wow.
And some of those things will give you a 2-hour hike on the way down. And it's like, God, I don't want to hike down. That's what gets a lot of people too, is there's a lot of hiking involved. Like the YouTube videos, that's about 5% of what it actually takes. My favorite jump in Switzerland is about a 2.5 to a 3-hour walk for a 90-second flight. So the ratio of busting your ass to smiling is very askew.
It's like Disneyland.
Pretty much, except it's actually fun and it's not full of pedophiles. So
Disneyland's full of pedophiles?
of course.
Really?
That's where all the kids are. Where would you go if you were a pedophile?
I didn't think of it that way.
Come on now.
It's like being a freak and going to the strip club.
Come on. There you go.
Ugly as shit, but ugly as shit, but.
You don't have to worry about that
Thanks.
robot.
What did he say?
Scared everybody just the way he worded it.
He said, "This is nothing. In a few years, that bot will move so fast you need a strobe light to see it. Sweet dreams."
He's such a
Oh, he's
I
a
love that
motherfucker.
motherfucker. That guy's so
He scares the
awesome.
shit out of me. But he's right.
Yeah.
Listen, man, he's probably one of the smartest human beings on the planet Earth. That guy's, that they think he might have invented Bitcoin? There's a lot of speculation online. You know what? Here's the thing. I want to talk about this in this podcast. I didn't even read the article. I looked at the headline. I'm like, probably, and I kept moving.
He started PayPal, right? Didn't him and
Yeah.
Peter Thiel start PayPal,
Yeah.
right? Co-founders of it?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that's what made him. And there's a video of him from the 1990s where he got a $1 million car delivered. Like he was just starting to ball when he's just starting to ball out of control. He's probably one of the smartest human beings ever.
A new sports car.
Oh, there's Tesla. Yeah. He's a fascinating guy, man. He just made a whole town out of a battery. He made the biggest battery in the history of the world. Did you hear about that one? Yeah, there's some new thing that he just built. They just built the largest battery in the history of the world. It's like a building. It's this guy is fucking Nikola Tesla. He's a madman.
We're gonna have battery explosions in the future. That's gonna be a big thing.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
right?
like this whole town's gonna blow up.
Tesla has built the world's largest battery in Australia. What in the fuck? Elon Musk is making good on his promise to solve an energy crisis in Australia. Can you make that bigger? It says, screw that up. Oh, here it goes. it's fully installed the world's largest lithium-ion battery in South Australia, the state government said in a statement Thursday. Tesla teamed up with a French renewable energy firm and a local government to install the battery, which must promise to deliver within 100 days of signing the contract, or it would be free. He's crazy.
Why would he do that?
He's a crazy person. He's a madman. He's like a fucking mad scientist he's like a guy from a movie, right? Like if you had a movie and there was some mad billionaire Robert Downey Jr. type character that just kept inventing the newest crazy shit and was at the cutting edge of science and was telling everybody to look out for the fucking robots that are gonna kill us, it would be Elon Musk.
Have you met him?
No. He came to the comedy show one night. I was panicking.
He watched you though, right? I think he did. He had a nice army with him.
Yeah, he brings a lot of people with guns. Good move.
Yeah, very good move.
Especially if you worry about robots. Fuck, man. He's right, though. That's the scary thing. When you watch that one robot, there's one mini robot. There's this little yellow one in this video. And it's running on the ground at like a very fast rate. And you're like, wait. Like, you're trying to wrap your head around this thing. Like, what if this thing has guns? What if it's got a little camera, and it's got guns, and it's running at you like this? And it's like the size of a 44 Magnum. It's like a series of 44 Magnums pointed at you. It's about that big, and it's running like 100 times faster than you could ever run. What? Hold on! This is like probably how people in Yemen feel. Like, yes! I've been telling you! You can't let them use robots. You know, like, the people that get bombed with drones, we've just sort of like, that's not real. You don't even have to, like, tell us about it. No one has to tell us that they're going to do it. They just do it, right? And something like 80% of the people that they kill are innocent. There's some crazy number of people that the drones have killed. I know we've gone over this before. What is it, like 80%? Do you remember?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Let's see if we can find it. Just because it's so, you know, you're like, maybe you take me. Probably. Might be like 78%, whatever it is. But it's, even if it's more than 50%, that's fucking crazy. We just have robots that shoot things at people. We hope we get the right ones.
You would never think that Transformers will actually happen one day. You know, like we're gonna have like good Transformers and bad Transformers.
Oh my god!
And then the good ones are gonna hack the bad ones, or vice versa.
Michael Bay was right all along.
God,
we need to bring Megan Fox back into the franchise. Well, that's hard to imagine, man. But it's probably inevitable, right? It's probably inevitable that someone is going to make some super smart robot that does his bidding, and we're going to have like a war of worlds.
Yeah, we're going to have RoboCops that fight the bad robots and the drones.
Can you imagine if the argument would be, let's let the robots fight because therefore it'll save human lives and will dictate how the world is won. Sort of just like the Olympics, but with robots fighting to the death to see who gets to run the world.
You know what Elon Musk should be doing instead of making batteries is trying to invent force fields. You know, like for real, we all need personal force fields.
Well, see, this is the thing. He is at the cutting edge of science in terms of like implementation of all these new inventions like lithium-ion batteries. They're hooked up to giant fucking whatever that structure was.
Yeah, drone races. It's on ESPN all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So they dudes put on like almost a VR headset and race through. They have them in arenas.
Oh my
it's crazy.
God.
A lot of times it's at night with lit up like neon obstacles they got to go through. These are like 70 miles an hour, I think. They go really fast.
Wow. So cool. That's incredible. That's the new video game. The new video game is you put you're just watching some real physical thing take place, and then you have these physical wars. So like instead of, you know, like if you built of semi-indestructible robots, right? And you had to duke it out with another army of semi-indestructible robots. And that would be like a television show.
Or drone laser tag. Where it's like Star Wars and you're fighting, and if you shoot your laser at it, it like turns off the drone. It doesn't destroy it. Maybe it makes it fake.
Yeah, but you have to have high stakes. See, I think things would be so cheap back by the time it gets to this point, it's like everything gets cheaper and cheaper. Like, used to be, like, you had to be a super baller to have that Michael Douglas brick on the beach, right? Remember in that movie, Greed, or whatever it was, Wall Street? Greed's good. He was walking with that giant brick. Like, you had to be a super baller to be able to afford that. But now, that's like nothing. And everyone has a cell phone that's way better than that. Like, every person walking down the street, you go, sir, do you have a phone on you? Yes, I do. And he pulls out his phone. It's way better than Michael Douglas's super baller, all-time high money cell phone.
Except Ari Shaffir.
Except Ari. But Ari has Ari's flip phone is still way better, right? It's still way better than that stupid piece of shit that Michael Douglas had. So if we just keep going in that direction, they're going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to do crazier and crazier things.
That's crazy. He just disappeared. Where's Eddie when I need him? Where's Mr. Bravo when I need him?
Crazy. He'd be going crazy about that one.
Yeah, but Eddie's conspiracies turn in on themselves because he'd be like, he's disappeared, but he's not really. What if he's not really dead? What
that
if?
could be that. Eddie, he loves himself a conspiracy. He gets so excited.
Yeah, I know.
It's like watching a guy
Well, gives
who's
him a
super into
community, too.
sports. Like a dude who's super into sports.
Uh-huh.
You know, like he fucking. You wanna
All
talk-
I'm
you wanna
saying,
be honest
all I'm
with him?
saying is it's a little weird.
Well, you know what I tried to. Someone's like, well, why does he enjoy conspiracies? I said, well, first of all, he enjoys them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, enjoy what you like. But also, Eddie has always been really good at, like, shutting down people not believing in his ideas with jiu-jitsu. Because Eddie has, like, revolutionary jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like, his jiu-jitsu,
Really creative.
his rubber guard setups and all the different things, the paths that he fixed a lot of paths in traditional jiu-jitsu, changed a lot of things and did some things his way. And when he would describe it to me, I was like, oh, this is a guy who, like, has an idea how to do things. And when people are opposing, he was like, no, I'm going to shut that down and move over here. So
That's interesting. So his brain works that way.
right. So when someone comes at him with an idea, he has an idea, and he's going to try to get that idea through. And when you come at him with some weak attacks on that idea and just expect that he's going to relinquish his hold on the idea, he's like, no, bitch, this don't make no sense. No, you don't have any information that he believes are being false.
Or it's going to take somebody to explain to him that his feelings control his thinking.
That is true, but there have been conspiracies that have successfully been executed, which makes this whole thing way more confusing.
Sure.
It's like, which one of these were real? To say that all conspiracies are bullshit, you are a victim of, like, some reverse racism.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm usually skeptical of conspiracies, especially government conspiracies, because government is notoriously so completely out of sync and not efficient enough, and certainly there are so many different competing interests within government, just within an administration.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to undermine each other, and that's the history. And it was set up that way. And even if you talk about faking the moon landing, you'd have to have about 1,000, maybe 2,000 people to keep a secret. That's impossible.
Not necessarily the case if you just had people thinking on a need-to-know basis with everything compartmentalized. Like, this guy's responsible for making the O-rings. This guy's responsible for
I don't know
making the
how it
jets.
works. I
don't know how it works either. But I do know that you're talking about, if you're trying to fake the moon landing, one of the things that would be much easier is during the Nixon administration, they were getting used to faking things. Watergate was going on. You know,
They all got found out, though, because somebody talks.
You're just starting to develop the kind of special effects abilities where you can sort of recreate space scenes, like 2001. That was the big conspiracy theorist dream, was that somehow or another, like, there'd be, like, some irrefutable proof that Stanley Kubrick was the one who worked on the moon landing. That was like, if I had found that, I'd be like coming in my pants, like, yes.
But Eddie never acknowledges that the same impulse that drives him, which is really to find the truth and to be skeptical of people's claims and even evidence that's been written down.
Yeah.
Human beings have always, for the most part, unless there's something wrong with you, wanted to be in the know.
Right.
Well, I don't know anyone who doesn't want to know the truth. I don't know anybody who doesn't want to know, who likes being deceived. And so that's why it's almost impossible to keep a secret long term in government.
Well, also,
because somebody always talks.
Thing on the other side of it. Here's one of the reasons why the whole conspiracy thing is so attractive to people. because there's a reward chain built into the human psyche of solving a problem that's presented in front of you that could potentially be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reward chain, and this
100%.
reward chain is acted upon even if you're talking about nonsense. Even if this is like some Area 51, you know, UFO body, fucking, whatever it is. Roswell, New Mexico, the guy who was there, the general, talked to my grandma.
Yeah.
He told me about the coffins, 4-foot-tall coffin. They were little alien babies. They took them to the back of the hearse. They had them embalmed, and my aunt saw it, and they killed her in the forest. Stop.
I know.
I can't.
But when you have an explanation, you don't feel as unsafe.
Yes.
See, if I tell you that there are random things that happen, for example, the shooter in Las Vegas, he was 64, and there were no signs. He was very controlling. If you look at, he's a bit of a sociopath. He had this obsession with control. But if I just tell you that sometimes people wig the fuck out and they just want to shoot a bunch of people, that's not appropriate. Because
There's also one
that means I
anti-anxiety
haven't.
medication.
Sure, but I'm sure. But there's
It
also
was.
like when you say that stuff, it's like now what you're saying is I have no real way to protect myself.
Yeah.
Even if I carry a gun, take all my vitamins, wear my seatbelt, there's always
What
some
is
crazy
good, bro?
shit.
I subbed in likes.
The people I've talked to that understand psych medicines, we've talked to some psychiatrists that I've had on the podcast.
I listen to Kelly Brogan talk about
Kelly
this.
Brogan talked about it quite extensively. One of the things that her and many other psychiatrists brought up is the dissociative properties of a lot of these psych medicines. That someone might have a horrible idea in their head, but the repercussions of it are real. Like acting on it feels real. But as soon as you have some sort of heavy dissociative psych medicine, it's not even real. Like you don't care anymore. You're like blah blah blah.
You're like
blah, blah.
watching yourself in a movie or something.
You're on something that dulls all the highs and the lows. It puts you in this weird state where it's okay to just kill these people. Like, I don't know whether or not you're a leap from being a person who could never kill somebody to being a person who doesn't have a problem killing somebody. I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe that's a chasm too far to cross. But I guarantee you, if you're the type of person that is having some horrible thoughts about, like, being aggressive to people, and then someone puts you on something that makes you like, I don't give a fuck. Like, it's gonna, if you're, who knows what the right chemical is too, right? Like if they give you the wrong one, maybe they'll switch you one way, or the right one will turn you the other way, or maybe we should add some Abilify into the mix. Maybe we should throw some of this in there. This is an antipsychotic to help you all even out.
Do you know you can have a lesion on your brain the size of the head of a pin? You can have a lesion, and if it's in the right, there's a specific area of the brain where it can be a tiny lesion that you can't see really, barely with the naked eye, and it can render you a homicidal maniac. That's my problem.
Fighting off the lesion.
I got lesions in my brain.
Is that true?
Yeah.
What is it called? What's the lesion?
I don't know. I could look it up for you, but it's by, I heard it was in a lecture by Daniel Robinson, who was a professor at Oxford and Georgetown and the smartest man on the planet.
Well,
And
that's why you have to really be careful when you punch people in the head, right?
yeah.
You're full.
LeBron's been known as a new wine head, and he posted
Okay,
some of
that's
his bottles
Hezekiah.
today.
That's Hezekiah is a ridiculously good one. I've had that. That 97.
So LeBron is a wine head.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah, he has some quite a few bottles of Opus One apparently, which is
Opus 1 is not. That's Hezekiah's way better than Opus 1.
All right.
Look at what he wrote here. Last night was mad real. Fresh out of Advil. Jesus grabbed the wheel. Sheesh. Imagine getting fucked up with LeBron James.
I think I brought that wine to your the one with the yellow.
I think you did.
I
I think you
brought that
did.
here.
I think you did. Yeah, that looks very familiar. Yeah, that's some good ass fucking wine.
Chasson Montrachet.
Good ass wine, Mr. Super Athlete.
There you go.
That's a real one.
Wow.
There's some real super athletes we go listen.
He's an
I don't give
avatar.
a fuck what kind of steroids you take. You're never gonna look like that. Never. There's human beings that have just the most unfathomable physical advantages.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like LeBron James would have like an unfathomable physical advantage over someone who would have an unfathomable physical advantage over you.
Yeah. Well,
Like
I did a
that's-
thing. I asked the guy who follows this, Jimmy Burke, about LeBron James. I
Jimmy
called him up
Burke?
and I left him one message. I said, Jim, and I want you to be honest and don't insult me. At what age did LeBron James surpass me as an athlete? And be careful with your fucking answer.
He said
because,
8.
because I'm a proud man. I'm a
He said
proud
8.
man, and I'll kick your fucking ass. I hung up the phone. I got a very thoughtful dissertation, and I just got this. 12 years old, and there's no question about that. 12. By the time he's 14, he's 6'4", 235, best player in the country. You were not that. You're not even close to that.
He was 14.
Yeah.
He was 6'4".
Yeah, I think he was 6'4". Look at him. Yeah, he's a freak. Yeah, there you go.
Look at the size of him.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's 6'9", 265. And I sat next to Carlos Boozer, who played with him, and they're the same size. And he goes, he's just a step faster than everybody as well. And just ridiculously strong.
Well, see, a guy like that, if he was fighting, everybody would be fucked.
Of course.
They're lucky.
Yeah.
They are goddamn lucky there's that much money in basketball.
That's right. He's incredibly
LeBron
fast.
James got into that.
And people go, well, you know what, man? Some things that make a great
Look at him.
basketball player wouldn't necessarily make you a great fighter. Listen to me. Save it. That guy's gonna beat your fucking ass.
Yeah.
He's a winner.
Yes.
There's just a certain level of winners that like he'd do whatever the fuck he wants.
Whatever he wants.
Bo Jackson could have done
Same thing.
whatever
I worked with Bo Jackson for a week.
Did you?
Yes, I did. And he was, and I said, "Oh, what do you weigh?" He was in a white T-shirt, and I was looking at the thickness of his fingers. You know me, I obsess because I'm basically a gay man. So I was looking at his hands. I grabbed his hands. It was just this giant meat, and I said, "What do you weigh?" He goes, He said, I remember. He was so weird. He was so specific. He said, "I'm 6'1.5", 240 pounds, 245 pounds." And he was the same size when he played, and he never has lifted weights in his life, ever. And he didn't lift weights when he played. He would just, as in his words, I'd just strap it on, and I'd hear the other team going, Bo's in the game, Bo's in the game. But you have to also understand that Bo Jackson not only did whatever he wanted to you on the football field, faster than everybody at 245 and stronger, he was also was he not an MVP in baseball?
All-star at least. I don't know.
All-star?
Yeah. Sure all-star.
That's unheard of. Deion Sanders played both ways, but there's no one like Bo Jackson. That's crazy. Throwing BBs, throwing fucking ropes from center field. I mean, he's a whole different kind of guy.
And one tackle, one hip injury.
That's right.
Changed all that shit.
Well, his hip started to die. It was some kind of necritis in his bone or something.
It was from getting hit. There was a very famous hit that he got tackled. You could see like the impact that it has on his hips when he goes down. At least am I remembering that correctly? There's a video of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the injury, and it's like
Just
oof.
a ridiculous athlete.
And still came back and was smashing home runs with a fake hip.
Mhm.
Came back and played baseball.
Yeah.
Whitaker's the interim.
that's true, which is such bullshit.
It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. So you have 2 champions, right? But I'm such bullshit.
Is it though?
Yeah, it's bullshit.
What's bullshit about it?
Take 4 years off, you jump the queue, you fight
Right.
a guy that's perfect matchup for
Right.
you, and you win.
Well,
You
we
got
didn't know
Whitaker,
that, though.
who walked through fucking
Right, but he
Monsterland.
But in his defense, he couldn't fight then. He's injured.
I know, I'm just saying.
Right. But if they could not have made the Whitaker versus Bisping fight any earlier, because Whitaker's knee was fucked up. I mean,
True.
He had a serious. So there was no fight to be made other than this in the middleweight division, unless you wanted to have Yoel just fought for the title and lost, fight Bisping for the real title after he lost for the interim title. That doesn't necessarily make sense.
Heaven forbid we should wait.
Well, I think
Heaven
that.
forbid, let's rush everything.
Did you enjoy the GSP fight?
Yeah, I did.
So
yeah, I'm not a hater.
What's the objecting?
Nah, there's no objecting. I'm just saying, as far as to me, the real champion at 85 would be Whitaker. I don't give GSP that title.
I do, because he knocked out Bisping. Knocked out Rockhold. It's really simple. Rockhold was absolutely the world champion. Bisping absolutely knocked him out.
Correct.
And then he beat Dan Henderson,
Which is an argument there.
Yeah, it's a little bit of argument.
We like it as old guys who are Dan Henderson fans, but let's be real.
Let's be
Was
real.
he the number 1 guy in the world at that time to fight for middleweight title?
It was
Probably
exciting
not.
to give Bisping what he wanted, which is a shot at redemption. Yeah, but.
Fuck!
It was exciting to give Bisping what he wanted, which is a shot at redemption. Yeah, but he
Great
did win.
fight.
He won the fight. Although Dan thought he won. You know, I could see Dan definitely hurt him more.
Oh my God.
Definitely
How about
hurt him.
Bisping's chin?
Yeah, incredible. And what Dan said after the fight, I wish they judge fights on how the other guy looks after the
That's
fight.
hilarious. That's hilarious.
Because he didn't have a scratch on him.
Bisping should go down as the top 3 middleweights of all time just based off doing this with one fucking eye. People, he has one eye, man. What he's doing is insane.
Yeah, he's got oil in his right eye, right, to keep his retina
He's a
in place.
maniac, man. He's one of the best of all time to me.
Retinas are scary shit, man.
Scary shit.
Scary shit when that stuff starts.
I'm just saying, if you look at what Whitaker has done to become champion, it's a little more impressive to me.
Well, it's a little more impressive because he beat Yoel Romero. And he beat Yoel Romero in a fucking tough fight. And he beat him after Yoel Romero hyperextended his leg and blew his knee out in the first round.
And before that, he starched Jacare. Starched him. Easily.
Him. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, he's walked through the fire. The same thing with Francis Gano. You know, like, you gotta walk through that fire, man, to me, to
I
get
agree.
there.
I agree.
So, but that's not the world we live in. But,
Yeah, but you gotta make the Bisping fight. If I was the UFC, I would have made that fight. GSP says he wants to come back and fight Bisping. Bisping says I want to get that big payday.
Me too.
I go, let's make this
Me
fight.
too. I'm with you. I'm with you. I make the fight too. I make the fight too. And what's interesting is you have these small, you have the smaller guy being the champ right now. And for Kelvin, he doesn't match up great with anyone freaking 6-1, but he does match up great with the champ. So you got to decide what you want to do with him. Because Kelvin can be world champion at 70, not at 85. Unless he fights Whitaker.
Hold on. You don't think that Kelvin could beat GSP?
GSP's not fighting 85,
okay, but he's the champ.
It doesn't matter.
GSP, though,
Do you think he can beat Matt Hughes? We should have that conversation, because GSP's going to fight it.
Well, wait a minute. No, but GSP is the 185-pound champ.
Who's never going to fight this?
Is competing at 185. But that's what it is. What do you got here? Oh, the order. Where's Kelvin? He's down at number 9. I think he should be a little higher. He just knocked out the former champ Michael Bisping, who's number 2. That doesn't make any sense. I don't care if Bisping was coming off of a tough fight with GSP. Definitely probably hampered his performance.
He should be at 7.
There's no way Kelvin should be at 9 and Bisping is at 2. That doesn't make any sense.
Maybe they didn't update it.
Hold up, but you're saying Kelvin should be at 2? That's crazy.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is there's no way that Bisping should be 2 if Kelvin just knocked him out. And Kelvin's 9. That doesn't make sense. What's the point of having a ranking?
Kelvin should be 9, but he should be 2.
He should be past Bisping.
Ooh, that's tough. What
No,
about
it's
the
not.
body of work?
No, he just knocked him out. It doesn't matter. The ranking is where are you at right now. If a guy beats you in a basketball tournament, right? Doesn't he move forward? If a guy beats you in a wrestling tournament, doesn't he move forward? Yeah, we don't look at someone's past and say this is who you are forever. We look at your present performance. The last performance that Michael Bisping had was against Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin beat him in a decisive, very clear, and dominating way. He moves ahead.
Was that the
He's
best
ranked
Bisping?
higher. Doesn't matter.
Oh, you don't care about any of that
He's
stuff.
ranked higher. All we can go on is the contest itself. The contest itself was very obviously won by Kelvin in a spectacular way. But bang! He drops that right jab in, that straight left hand.
Nasty.
Oh!
Amazing performance.
Amazing
Kelvin's
performance.
a monster.
He's ahead of Bisping. Fact.
Okay.
Anybody says differently.
That's fine. That's fine. You can put him ahead of Bisping. However, you can't put him at number 2 middleweight in the world.
No, I wouldn't. Because I think Weidman's in the mix. Yoel Romero's in the
Weidman
mix.
beat him.
Yes.
Jacare's a bad matchup. Luke Rockhold is a monster of that division. Luke Rockhold would. If I put money on somebody, Luke Rockhold's going to be the champ of that division.
He could be. He very well could be. Or David Branch almost took him out. Remember that? David Branch hurt him.
Almost
got him
took out
stunned.
who?
Luke Rockhold.
Oh, come
He had him hurt.
on.
You don't think he had him hurt?
Not that bad.
I think he had him hurt. But Rockhold showed what a fucking animal he is and came through it. But what happens if someone like Yoel Romero catches him like that? What happens if someone like Robert Whitaker catches him like that?
With Rockhold?
My thing is Rockhold is a beast, but anything can happen in that division when these guys are that good. Even David Branch, what I'm saying, who's a very good fighter and hadn't lost in like 5 years.
World Series again, though.
Yeah, again. But gave, until he got tired, gave Rockhold a very tough experience.
He came
wasn't
at
like
him.
Yes,
He came at him.
It wasn't like Rockhold dominated the fight.
Remember, Rockhold had a long-ass layoff. He's
He
doing
did.
the modeling
Yep.
thing. He wanted this sort of matchup. He wanted this sort of money. And then that long-ass layoff. Then you fight this, the middleweight champion, light heavyweight champion for the World Series, and it's his biggest fight of all time. He brings it towards Rockhold. Rockhold weathered the storm and then just took over.
Weathered the storm, took
him down,
smashed him.
Smashed him.
Smashed him.
Renzo Gracie Black.
My point is that That
He broke
absolutely, he did. He definitely did.
Broke.
He wore him down too. He was exhausted by
That's
the time.
basically after how long
Yeah.
off? 14 months off? Which, you know.
Now he's one of the most underrated guys, especially at getting you down and holding you down. Look what he did to Lyoto Machida. Look what he did to Weidman.
Yeah,
and look
man.
what he did to David Branch. Those guys are all very good at the ground, and he smashes them.
And you go back to Strikeforce days, his Jacare fights, Tim Kenny, you know, he's fought the best of the best.
He's definitely been a savage his entire career, but
His size.
you still have to realize Bisping did knock him out. And you know what, man? You're in a division where you're talking about a ton of psychos. Like you got Robert Whitaker, Yoel Romero, Chris Weidman. You got GSP if he decides to stay in the division, but you don't think he will. But okay, he's a champ. But you got
Whitaker's the champ.
You got these killers, and then Luke Rockhold might be the best out of all of them.
Yes.
But he might not be. We really don't know. I mean, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about them. I'm excited about, you look at him on paper, you go, yeah, Rockhold might be the best of the bunch, but goddamn, it's hard to root against Whitaker. It's hard to bet against that guy.
Yeah, I'm done betting against Whitaker.
Especially after he stuffed all the fucking takedowns from Yoel Romero with one knee.
I'm on that Whitaker train just like I'm on the Darren Till train.
Yeah.
85, 70, and 55 in the UFC is so goddamn good right now.
So competitive.
It's the best it's ever been. Light heavyweight, the worst it's ever been. Heavyweight, land of the dinosaurs. But 55, 70, 85,
pull up that
make you take
Neil
hard.
Meek Kamaru Usman fight. We should find out if that fight's actually been canceled.
And the Sean King shit, where I'm like making a joke that I think would be hilarious if slavery came back because he'd have to admit he's white. I mean, that's fucking funny, man. I'm not gonna back down on humor. I'm just not. And then he calls me a white supremacist. Says actual people with like blue check marks are like, I never knew you were a racist. I'm like, you know I'm not, man. You know it's a joke about him lying about who he is. And I'm not gonna
explain to people who he is and what that whole story is. Because I don't know whether it's true or not, but I know what I've seen online, and I know what a lot of like Milo exposed. But if I was Rachel Dolezal right now, I'd be fucking pissed.
Oh, totally, dude. And it's like, even if I'm wrong, let's say he is a black guy with
well, even if he is, let's be honest. Like,
he's not.
I'm not Irish, but I'm a quarter Irish.
Right.
But if you look, you know why? Because I'm 3/4 Irish. If I was going on TV identifying as an Irish man,
right?
People would like,
that's infinitely more
what part Irish?
okay.
How much Irish are you? I mean, people would say that's disingenuous because no one can tell, nor does anyone care about the distinction between Irish and Italian. You're just a European. Here you are in America. You know, third generation, no big deal.
Yeah.
But there's a reality to that. Because, like, what percentage black do you have to be where you say I'm a black man?
Well, because he wants the points. That's why it's not even about pride, and you don't.
Whoa.
There we go.
You don't. What
That's
is
the
this?
shit right there.
You don't choose to be trans black. It chooses you. This is my life. My struggle is real. # wrong skin.
Yeah.
Is that real?
That's real.
Okay, that's real.
Well,
so that is.
That's
okay,
the shit he talks
I
about
don't know
all
if
the
that's
time.
a real tweet.
It's from Owen's thing. I was listening to.
Okay.
I've
I don't
retweeted
know,
some shit that
but
I've been
here's the
tricked
thing.
about, so I can't.
Someone could create that.
I'll
There
go
was a
see it.
guy.
Find it.
There was a guy that I was following for a while that had a parody account, and he was going by # wrong skin. He was a comedian,
Yeah.
and he was always talking about himself as being transracial, but he was doing it like completely preposterous. And he would be like, he'd take like the ultra progressive, really ridiculous approach to like almost every argument, and then always write like # wrong skin.
Hilarious. Because it all started because that dude poked at me because I had this bit that I want to be a progressive slave owner, where I'm like, the reason slavery's wrong is because it's only black people. That's not right. That's racism. I want all the people. And I'm like, if you can't outrun the nets and the harpoons, welcome to the club. And that's a joke about the absurdity of certain progressive ideals. And then he poked at me somehow, and then I was like, this guy's fucking...
Well, if I could be really honest about that, I saw that bit, and I was like, I see your point, but I think that's like a first draft of an idea.
Of course.
Of like, because...
I bailed on the joke, because it doesn't. It only works in certain cities.
But this is why. I mean, this is how I felt. I'm like, okay, no, because I don't want anybody to be slaves. Like, so, like, the joke is, like, it's kind of cruel in a way. Like, we're not talking about real people, of course, but the sentiment behind it is people who run slow, anybody who can't get away should be a slave. Like, no. But you don't really feel that way. You're saying that because you want to poke people.
Well, it was extreme. It was
You know what I'm
I was,
saying?
honestly, of course. I don't want any slaves.
Of course.
It was
Why
like
do you
the
say
upside
that?
down.
Right.
It was upside down satire where, because I was
I know
honestly,
it was, but
of
I'm just
course.
saying it wasn't right. It wasn't quite there. It was like you were in the neighborhood.
But that's what our job is.
Yes.
You know, and that's the whole thing. It's like everyone thinks that you start knowing the bit. You know, freedom of speech is all about way overshooting, then pulling back and finding, you know. And I was overshooting, like, that's why I do Wanted to Laugh, where it's like, look at how this one phrase hurts people and then how you make it not hurt people based on information I didn't previously know.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like my wife gave me info about, I was doing some bit about how vampires are cultural appropriation for Romanians, and I don't even understand what the point was, but it had something to do with hairy Mexicans.
Hold
women.
up. What is this? Jamie, what are you
I
showing
was trying to
us?
find it. When I went in looking for it, he apparently hid or deleted those tweets.
He
It
deleted
says,
a lot with me.
now Sean King is cranking out a boatload of original tweets in a continued effort to dilute last week's #transblack and #wrongskin tweets. Oh, so you like got a bad response.
There's
to
a
him
lot of
saying
people tweeting about that whole thing for weeks. That were going on into 2016 and a bunch.
You know, I don't give a fuck, man. If you want to. A woman, or you feeling anything, but the real problem is like the insisting on that definition in a very specific manner that's disingenuous with your actual background, because everyone is essentially, we all came from Africa. That was the original human beings, and like we said before, being white is solar panels for vitamin D. That's all it is. It's we moved to a place that had a lot of clouds and it wasn't anything like Africa, and slowly, over who knows how many fucking years, people changed and you developed paler and paler skin. That's it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. I don't care. But just here's a better way to do it. Just act the way you feel like you like to act, and don't lie about what your background is.
Totally.
And you can be the exact same person, no one will give a fuck.
And the irony is he's trying to get victim status when he's not part of a group, and because addicted to bondage.
Dan Carlin.
Yeah, Dan
George
Carlin.
Carlin covered a lot of
Oh,
shit.
yeah,
too.
sorry.
I thought you were talking about him.
Dude, I got some of the wolf in me. But like Dan Carlin, Addicted to Bondage, we're all related to slaves and slave owners. It's like it was actually progressive because of genocide.
Yeah.
That's the irony. It's like back in the day, an army wins, they kill everyone. And then some Bernie Sanders guy was like, let's keep some alive. And everyone's like, you're such a fucking lefty, you know? And so we grew out of that, thank God. Of course I don't like slavery. I think I'm almost in this position where like, I'm a little freaked out that some givens aren't given anymore.
Like what?
Like that Hitler's bad, or I don't like slavery, where I'm like,
It's not just a given.
It's a given.
Right.
Like, who the fuck likes slavery? It's
Well,
like
there's
owning a human?
There's still a bunch of retards out there that think it's a good idea to be a white nationalist. We're
Of
talking
course,
about
yeah,
that.
right.
Like Charlottesville, like when you see that guy who got pepper spray, takes his shirt off, you see a swastika on his chest, like, okay, what about the Nazis is awesome to you?
Right,
What
of course.
Is it just fucking gassing random children? Like, sit down, tell me.
Yeah,
Tell me what you think is awesome.
A bad war plan in Russia?
The idea that, are you so fucking stupid that you really think the only people of merit have genetics that come from a certain patch of dirt? Because that's one of the most toxic ideas that
So toxic,
we all
man.
share.
And it's toxic in the same way that some of the left shit is toxic too. They both have this toxic element where like, unless you look at merit and character, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, whether or not you think white people are special and then you should keep them down or boost them.
Like when it comes to Rachel Dolezal, like her problem is not that she wants to be black and she's not. Her problem is that people give a fuck about what she wants. And if she just didn't have that language, just did like imagine her whole world could be exactly the same. The way she behaves could be exactly the same. The way she dresses, her actions, everything. If she didn't utter a few words, like I'm actually black, and people are like, wait, what? Like, and then they go into her history. No, you lied. You wanted to be black, but you weren't black. Look,
Right.
look, we have an imposter.
And then just click. It's just eyeballs.
Sean King, he's a part of Black Lives Matter. Obviously, he wanted to do good. Obviously, he wanted to spread good ideas and help people, the people that he really identified with. If those tweets are real, and I don't know if they are, hashtag wrong skin and hashtag transracial and all that stuff, and that's literally how he felt. He didn't feel it because he hated those people. He felt it because he identified with them. They're more attractive to him than what he actually was. So if he just Paul Walled it and never said, I mean, Paul Wall, right? The rapper with the grill? I mean, isn't that essentially, he's a deep love of black American culture, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that just be themselves and go in. Just go in, this is what I appreciate more. There's a lot of black people at golf clubs with fucking polo shirts on, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because they identify with that culture, it's appealing to them. Well, just let people fucking
Dude,
be,
culture's
man.
everything, man.
Let people be.
And the irony is
he
like...
told Joey Diaz he's gonna get us grills. You heard about that?
And the irony is like inner city black culture comes to my shows and thinks I'm funny.
Yeah.
Because they like that crazy shit. They're
you're
like,
free.
Like, man, you're fucking funny.
You're free to talk about things.
Right. They just think it's funny. I think when I say they, it's annoying because it's like, of course, not all black people find it funny, but like that culture, that black redneck white liberal culture, it's like I'm from a culture that's more similar to American southern or urban black culture than a lot of the liberals calling me names. And it's just this type of culture that bonds through shit talking, like Boston, where it's like, if you talk shit, someone's like, oh, your dad acts like a homo. I'm like, at least my dad didn't kill himself, and then you're friends. Because it's like you've hit the darkest shit, and then you're like, oh, we'll make it through a winter.
Yeah, a winter is a big thing to make it through.
I think he'll survive his term, but I don't think he'll run again. I'm of the mind that he won't run again.
But he's already ran for re-election. He's already filed.
Well, he's filing and he's raising money. But I think that once Kellyanne Conway and these other people that engineered the election for him to begin with, after the midterms, which I think are going to be interesting, I think the midterms actually benefit in some ways the Republicans because of the map and this.
No. Well, someone else got to, so might as well.
Tu fais bien ton pied.
Don't you ever recommend me this fucking French bitch? What the fuck I look like watching that shit, bitch?
Happen in the Senate, but I think that when it becomes clear that he cannot win,
You really think he will win again?
I don't. So it's interesting because I'm good friends. I went to college with this girl who's a lobbyist in Washington. She's a Democrat. She's pretty well connected, and I had dinner with her a couple weeks ago. She was like, not only will Trump run again, he'll win, and this was when everything was going on and all this. And I'm like, I just don't see him subjecting himself to the possibility of losing. He won once, you know, and it reminds me of 2004 when Bush won again, but he also won the popular vote. You know, he beat Kerry, and it kind of legitimized himself. I think that Trump is going to risk further illegitimizing himself by subjecting himself to, you know, not only a primary, which is going to happen, which is the death knell for an incumbent. I think ask Gerald Ford, ask Jimmy Carter how that went for them when they were primary because they were so unpopular. And then he goes in, and there's going to be if the Democrats are smart, they put someone up that's really good. And I also think there's going to be an independent candidate that's going to screw everything up as well. So
I think he has a very, very high likelihood of running again, and I think he absolutely could win again.
Do you think he'll win the primary? Because I'm not even sure he would get through the primary.
I don't know. I mean, it all depends on what happens over the next 3 years. Obviously, I'm in no way, shape, or form a political expert, but I think that we got a lot of dummies in this country. And all we need is momentum. All you need is one event, some big thing to happen where Donald Trump solves a problem. Do you remember how happy people were with George Bush directly after after September 11th?
Yeah.
Right after September 11th, and he made a bunch of speeches and said a bunch of things, and his approval rating shot
90% or something like that.
It shot up, and people were very excited, and they were like, "This is the reason why we need a sort of a good old boy president." It's because when push comes to shove, they know how to get the men in uniform behind it and just take care of this problem with military might and make America great again, all that kind of bullshit. If something like that happens with Trump, and Trump, you remember how he had that one speech? Jamie, can you give me another one of these things, please? When he had that one speech where everybody's like, "Oh, that was presidential." Like he had one presidential speech where he spoke in front of Congress, and everyone was clapping, and he said a bunch of things. All he needs is one event, something that happens where he steps up and manages it with a reasonable vocabulary and does things that people approve of, especially some sort of a catastrophic situation or any sort of a military situation. If we have to deal with North Korea, if we have to deal with something where there's like real legitimate concerns, if that happens and he manages it, people get scared and they don't want change. I think if that happens, it's entirely likely we have to deal with some sort of a catastrophe, some sort of a tragedy, some sort of an attack or an event, and Donald Trump manages it well. It's entirely likely that he could be president.
Sure, there could be a moment like that. I wouldn't throw anything past him specifically because I and many other people were so wrong about his ability to win to begin with. I thought he would do. I kept saying he's going to do better and get more votes than people thought, but I didn't think he had a prayer of winning. But there are certain things you can look at where it's like, well, it's about 50,000 votes along in 3 states that he even won at all. The vote was suppressed and I'm not saying it was actively suppressed. People just weren't enthusiastic about this, so people weren't out there to vote. Now people see the consequences of not voting. I don't think that it's like I guess what I'm saying is that the prognostication that like this is the end of the world, right? Like that Donald Trump being president. We've had terrible presidents. You know, like we've had really bad presidents.
But he's the worst.
Yeah, in some sense, I'll say that he's the most incompetent. We've had some presidents that were just in shitty situations that they couldn't manage.
Long time ago.
Yeah, I would say Hoover's probably the last one, and James Buchanan obviously was an awful president. In 1857, the state started to secede when he was president. So and he couldn't do anything about it. So we had really dire, serious situations with presidents that were in over their heads.
But there also is no footage of them. There's no film. You know, you have to really go back and read history to understand the consequences of their actions. Where we're seeing all this play out in real time. We're seeing the poverty of his vocabulary, the way he communicates in the press, the way he pats himself on the back. Like the other day, he said he has one of the great memories of all time, and like he says things that are just preposterous.
The one about him being an Ivy League, I went to an Ivy League school. I'm intelligent. I'm like, I'm one of the guys that says like, I don't think he's dumb at all. I don't think he's stupid. I just think he's in over his head.
Did you ever see him in the '90s talk about running for president? You ever see that video footage? I think it was on Charlie Rose or something like that.
Starting in '88, he started talking about it. All the way through.
And when you go back and listen to that, like, first of all, did something happen to his brain? Like, why is he so clunky now? Like, why are his sentences so poorly formed, and why is his speech pattern so shitty now? I mean, that's what you gotta wonder about, like, old dudes. They get to a certain age, especially guys like him who don't exercise, don't eat well.
Right. He has a KFC bucket in the
way. He's got a big fat gut, and he's like, how well are his neurons firing? You know?
Yeah, he's.
See if you can find that video of him back from. You got it? Like, watch this. Listen to this.
Yeah, if you had to do it again, I'm not sure you could. I went through a period of 2 years that was truly tough. Well, you know, you have parents, and you have people that adore you, and you have people that for 15 years nothing went wrong, and then all of a sudden the world seems to be coming to an end. I mean, it just seems to become, and it's just it was just sort of an incredible experience. And
this is him being humble, talking about going bankrupt. I'd like to know him talking about running for president, though.
My father wouldn't have been in a position to run, but he certainly helped, and you know, morally.
The whole interview's an hour long.
Oh, okay.
My mother was. I had a sister who was a
trying to find out.
She's very.
Did you find out?
No. Just listen to his speech pattern.
I never knew as to whether I should be there or wouldn't be there. She was very experienced. Other people were there, but you know the incredible thing is you can't really tell. You can't really tell who's going to be there, who's not. I would have bet my life on certain people. I would have said, politically speaking, that somebody that Andrew Stein would have been there. And it wasn't. I would have said that other people were. He wasn't there in terms of, for 15 years I supported Andrew Stein. Supported him. I never asked him for that vote. When I needed a vote, one over something, until the very end, when everybody else was on board, Andrew was not there. And I was really surprised at that. Now, ultimately, he was there. But it shouldn't have been so difficult. I really shouldn't have been so difficult.
But here comes one of the things they say is that sits within you a vindictiveness about that, and you're not going to forget that. And part of the Trump style is that at some point you're going to try to get Stein back.
Well, I don't think I'm going to get Stein back. I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed in other people, and I'm not disappointed in some of
Okay. Well, my point is, he seems like a much more reasonable person.
Yeah, cogent. Like, it could be age. Maybe he's going. Maybe he's a little senile. I have no idea.
But also, I think, and this is something I've been really not battling, but bouncing around in my head a lot lately, is that I think this hate of him, the constant, people are suing him, saying you can't block him on Twitter anymore.
People are being very petulant about that stuff.
But all of this, like the Saturday Night Live satires of him, all the shit that they do, is ramping up his mania, and it's actually bad for all of us, and that you don't get someone to change by going, hey, fucking change, you're a piece of shit. Like, that doesn't make people change. It makes people aware that you hate them, and depending entirely upon their personality, whether or not they're reflective or introspective, how they react to that. He seems to react to it by like doubling down, and by getting more aggressively defensive, and more self-aggrandizing, and more self-congratulatory. He seems to get more Trump.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's the Hulk. Like, you ever see when they shoot the Hulk, he gets bigger?
Right. Yeah, he definitely, he doesn't deal with, he's in a situation where someone needs to lower their rifles, right? And after he was elected, I thought for sure that smart people in his transition team, and he's not surrounded by dumb people. He's surrounded by inexperienced political operatives, but he's not surrounded by dumb people. That someone at some point would have said, like, we can now get down to the act of governing, and I'm of the mind that if he just started acting more normal, if he stopped tweeting so much, if he just spoke in a more normal way, did normal things, people would have forgotten a lot of what happened during the campaign, and he would have been in much better shape to get legislative goals through and stuff like that. But he can't help himself.
No.
Like he, and that's why I think like this destructive. I just don't know that the American people are going to want this again. Like, I think that he has a base of 30-35% that will be there.
But isn't that what Obama had at his lowest?
For
approval ratings?
Yeah, in his second term, I think he was down to that.
Like I think his lowest approval ratings were higher than Trump's lowest, but he's in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm not even saying, because approval ratings are fickle. You can do all sorts of shit to manipulate those numbers. And Trump would, interestingly and rightfully maybe say, like, look at the economy, it's doing great. Look at the stock market, it's doing great.
But the economy was on, it's sort of deceptive, right? Because
Right.
the economy was on an upward trend.
Right, and again, it's
and
all
he sort
wave.
of caught that wave.
Right.
But there is a real belief by business people that Donald Trump is going to make things easier for them because of his nature. Fuck, Jamie. What happened? Those motherfuckers with their ads. That we have this sense that business people think that he's going to alleviate restrictions, he's going to make things easier, he's going to open up doors, and he's going to do things that some people think are very unpopular. Like one of the things he's done is he made it so you can bring back lion trophies now, again from Africa. So if people
like,
want to go to Africa and shoot lions, you can bring them over.
Which is bizarre. Doesn't make any. What is
No other president. What is this? Trump's approval rating is bad. Day 197 of his presidency, 530 pegged at just 37%. No other president in history of modern polling had an approval rate so dismal on day 197. According to 538's tracker, former President Gerald Ford came close to matching Trump, but could have boasted an approval rate of nearly 2.5% points higher.
It would be super surprising to have Obama fall into the high 30s or low 40s in his second term, because that's when they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when they really start to take initiative and do certain things.
I didn't see it below like 47%.
Obama?
Yeah.
He must have been lower. Oh, is this?
Disapproval is a little different than approval. So.
Oh, disapproval?
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's a disapproval rating?
Yeah. Do you disapprove or do you approve?
Well, yeah, because you could be neutral on that.
Right. So if like there's a disapproval rating of 50%, that doesn't mean there's an approval rating of 50%.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
I think it's funny because like, I think with there are certain things that I think people don't understand that are unpopular that do need to be done specifically for businesses.
Right.
I own a business. I've owned two of them. You run your own business, like with your all of your ventures as well, and it's very hard. And a lot of people look at just from an administrative paperwork standpoint, taxes, all those kinds of things. It's awful. And I think a lot of people point at business big and small, and they look at them as like these ways you can kind of like get blood out of a stone and take it and extract as much money out of them as possible and all these kinds of things. And a lot of people are not sympathetic to it because, no offense, they have no idea what they're talking about. And I've been watching The West Wing again, which I love. I love that show.
Never watched it.
Oh, it's fantastic. You probably love it. You should check it out. It's just a great show. And one of the things they say in there is that the major difference, people call us a democracy, but we're not a democracy. We're a republic. And the idea is that you vote for people that go make decisions on your behalf. And sometimes those decisions are going to be unpopular, but some people do know better than others. And so there are certain things, I don't necessarily judge a move based only on popularity, because what does society at large know about running a business? Nothing. So you have to ask people that understand what it is to run a business and how you can make that easier. So you can't judge things based on that only. My major concern with him, though, is that he's so unpopular, even in his own party, and even specifically with the House, that because they are constantly up for re-election, that they haven't had one legislative win in the entire time he's been president.
Doesn't he not have all the positions fully staffed as well?
Yeah, there are things, and that's not uncommon either. Sometimes things go for years without being staffed or whatever. I think part of the problem is
so crazy. Like, how the fuck do you take office without all the pieces in place?
Because who knows? The conspiracy theories run deep on this one, but I don't think thought he was going to win, and I'm not even sure he wanted to win. And I don't think that they had a real transition. I read Hillary Clinton's book, What Happened, which is an interesting book.
You read the whole thing?
Yep.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Jesus, what happened?
Well, because I'd be interested.
Were you high?
It's part of the time, yeah. Just laying in the bathtub reading.
Seems like something you would have to be high to read.
But I wanted to perspective, right?
Right.
Like I think it's just interesting. And
What was
well, there's a lot of things in there, but one of the things she was talking about was that they were fully prepared for their transition. So you're dealing, which is not a surprise. Like she was actually talking about in October, she started taking regular meetings because they assumed that she was going to win, about how she was going to staff things and the decisions they were going to make in the first 100 days. And I think you just have something that's like over the top bravado, right? And on the other end, ironically for someone with so much bravado, you have someone that just was totally not prepared to win. Because I don't think anyone inside, except for maybe Kellyanne Conway, was
Well, do you think that's the case, or do you think he was just concentrating entirely on winning and then figure it out once he gets in there?
Maybe, but you should. I mean, it could be anything. The definitive book on this has not been written yet, unfortunately. And actually, Mark Halpern was writing that book, and now he's finished with that.
I mean, you realize that he has such a limited understanding of what even his powers are, and what even what was the guy he spoke to? We said I had a conversation with the president of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Like, hey, dude, you're the president of the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah, he makes some stupid mistakes. He doesn't. I mean, I remember during the debates. Yeah, that was. There's some moments like that where I'm like, you're funny, but unfortunately the situation
doesn't call for being funny.
Yeah, it's not humorous. It's not a humorous situation, and I feel like specifically with in terms of governance, I think he just. Like, I remember the debates where he didn't know what the nuclear triad was, which is like,
right,
the fuck do you not know what the nuclear triad is, you know? And where he's speaking around issues that are somewhat basic, right? And that someone that's running for president should know. And when you multiply and then being inundated by he has no one, for very few people that are willing to work for him that are capable.
That was lit! I can't believe I just did that!
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Duke Dennis, and today's video is gonna be about the top 5 worst things about NBA 2K18 as far as I can tell. Now these are my personal, personal opinions about things that just don't sit right. They just don't sit right with me. You know what I'm saying? Number one is in Mockery now. At any point, if y'all agree with what I'm saying, make sure y'all drop a like on the video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and help me out a lot. Number one, in my career, if you jump at any point, they call me a foul. Like, they need to tone that down all the way, man. Like, I be getting fouled out a lot just because I be trying to block. They be clean blocks, and they be calling fouls. You know what I'm saying? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Number 2 is the cutscenes. Cutscenes in this game are way too long. I don't care about the Asian girl. You know what I'm saying? Bring back Orange Juice. Free. I don't like that Asian girl. Be Fresh or whatever her name is. I don't really care too much about her. They could have done way better with Be Fresh. And she like mad at doing it. You know what I'm saying? She be clout chasing. Be Fresh be clout chasing. She just do too much for me. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, number 3, the third worst thing about NBA 2K18 is where are the mascots? Like, I've been hearing a lot of rumors about how to get mascots. That some people say mascots not even in the game. You know what I'm saying? If y'all know how to get mascots, drop it in the comment section for me, because I really don't know. Some people say you gotta win Mountain Dew just to get a mascot. Some people say they gonna do some type of tournament for mascots. I don't know how true that is, so y'all make sure y'all comment if y'all know the way to get mascots. What's good, YouTube, man? It's your boy Duke Dennis, man, and today, man, I'm bringing y'all a little something that I don't even want to bring y'all, man. Today's video is saying goodbye to my 2K17 Stretch Big, man. He the dude that got me where I'm at today. It's crazy, bro. I didn't even think this, you know what I'm saying? I didn't even think it was going to happen. But shout out to my Stretch Big. Shout out to Noti Gang. Shout out to all my subscribers, man. My 30,000 subs, man. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for y'all, man, for real. So shout out to y'all. Shout out to all my moderators, man. They help me keep the stream under control, man. I'm gonna try to remember y'all all y'all names. But shout out to my nigga Kibo. Shout out to nigga Budo. Shout out to J Siggy. Shout out to King Cali. Shout out to Yo Plays. Shout out to Lil Bill. Shout out to Hot Fly. Shout out to LJ. Shout out to Guru with a Draco, aka Green Eyed Guru. Shout out to King Jordan. Shout out to my nigga Corey. Boy, it's a lot of y'all, boy, for real. Shout out to my nigga Davo. Shout out to my nigga Darius. Boy. Shout out to that Jones, boy. Shout out to that boy Sailor. Man, just shout out to all my subs, bro. You know what I'm saying? But we gonna turn up in 2K18, man. I'm expecting 300K, 500K. I ain't even gonna sit here and flex on y'all. I'm turning up, bro, for real. Y'all gonna see it. But man, on this video right here, man, this is the last Stretch Big video, man. Say goodbye to my Stretch Big. We need 1,000 likes today on the first day, bro. Show me what's up. Show me y'all got me, and I'll see y'all boys in 2K18, bro. I appreciate y'all support, man. We out, D-Gang.
Back when I was 21, my favorite gun was a seed. 20 in the clip, hit one. Growing up, I was a running back. We never made me ran one.
Man, ain't no way it's been a year already, man. Guess I'm about to turn up at the park one at a time, bro.
February 10, it's the boy, but I'm still the man. Come and get your mans. I don't know. First you caught their hands, then you took a stand. It's a joke, but you say you real. I don't understand.
Haters coming faster than I ever seen them come through. Resurrection say I was the one you wonder what I go to the tower. I belong from the corner, slang stone. 20 mistakes in the year, you know the taste. I'm fly. Only that just a code that I live by. Tell me I can't do it, it won't work, and I'ma sleep. The corner slang. Resurrection say I was the one you wonder what I go to the tower. I belong from the corner, slang stone. 20 mistakes in the year, you know the taste. I'm fly. Only that just a code that I live by. Tell me I can't do it, it won't work, and I'ma still try. Try to hold me back and doubted me, they. Tell me how you really feel. Tell me how you really feel. I would ask you what's the deal. You don't even got a deal. Most niggas with a deal. Couldn't make the greatest hits. Y'all a whole lot of things. What you still ain't is. I don't know no one that can tell me what to do. Heard you never claim the hood. Heard the hood claimed you. That can't sit well. Oh well, shit said.
Today is Wednesday, November 1st, which means Sober October is over. Yeah. And I have saved my indulgence to be here with you all, Benjamin.
It's such an honor.
We're going to drink some William Wolf Bourbon. It's perfect. I'm not sure where I got this. I believe somebody gave it to me. I hope it's not poison. Three, two, one. Yeehaw! Yeehaw, Colin. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, thanks. What's going on? What's cracking?
Not a lot. It's an honor for you to ask me back. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, dude. I had a great time with you last time. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you, too. Congratulations. You were just showing me around the space. Very cool.
Thank you.
I'm very excited.
Corey, I'm excited, too.
I bet.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Jamie's moving shit around. What happened? That's all right.
Oh.
I was out of line. Welcome. And how's Colin's Last 10 going?
It's good. It's fun. It's I always describe it. It's not big. It's just got its little slice of the internet, and it's attracted videos do 20, 30, 40, 50,000 views, and I have
that's a good spot. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, I'm happy with it, and I have. Congratulations, you were just showing me around the space. Very cool.
Thank you.
I'm very excited.
Corey, I'm excited too.
I bet.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Jamie's moving shit around. What happened? That's all right.
Oh.
I was out of line. Welcome. And how's Colin's Last 10 going?
It's good. It's fun. It's I always describe it. It's not big. It's just got its little slice of the internet, and it's attracted videos do 20, 30, 40, 50,000 views, and I have
that's a good spot. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, I'm happy with it, and I have like 4,500 people on Patreon supporting me, and I don't serve ads on anything I do, so I'm just trying to make it organic and see how far I can take it, and then go from there.
Sam Harris does his entire podcast that way. He doesn't have any ads, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. Like I worked at IGN for a long time, the video game site, and my old company, so we had ads, and I have no problem with them. But I was trying to just kind of say like I don't need more than what you're giving me. This is plenty, and I'm doing fine. And so maybe I'll do ads on future products, but not with this.
Yeah. I mean, why not, right? I mean, just if you're enjoying it. I mean, you could do different products. Different projects, whatever. You can do it different ways.
Yep.
It's interesting now to try to figure out like what's the best way for people to put their stuff out there. Like I know a lot of people, like in the podcast world, some people use SoundCloud, some people use other things, some people just go straight to YouTube. I mean, it's there's a lot of experimentation going on now.
Yeah, and I'm always fascinated by that particular thing about how I do a podcast now just on the side called Fireside Chats, where I just have random people in to talk about random things. It was similar, but not nearly as good as your show. And I'm always amazed that people are like, why don't you put this on YouTube? And I'm like, you just want to stare at a static image on YouTube? There's like, I don't even have it on video. People just, It's just about how people consume the content. So maybe like a spreadshot approach is probably the smartest idea.
Well, if you could hire someone to do images that represent the conversation, maybe that would be a reason to have it on YouTube. But I hear you. Yeah, people just get excited about a platform. They get locked into a platform, and then they just digest everything in that platform, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or YouTube. It's weird. What Jamie and I have been talking about this a lot lately, about like what makes it through. Like, how did YouTube become the only one where people upload videos? That seems insane. It seems like that seems so straightforward. You so people can upload videos, you put ads on those videos, and that's it. I mean, it seems like there would be hundreds of those sites.
Yeah, and I think they were just first, and it was kind of like it was like ubiquitous quickly. So I find that with a lot of like social media too. Like you think about like Snapchat's really like faltering now because Instagram's basically stolen its entire platform, and it's all about like kind of these little monopolies that exist. Monopolies for pictures, monopolies for video, monopoly for interacting with friends and family on Facebook and stuff like that. There's no Facebook competitor,
No. I mean, Facebook seems to me to be a more indulgent medium, though. It seems like I read sometimes I'll see people's Facebook posts and I just see the first paragraph and then I'll see how long it goes. I'm like, fuck, reading that. Just keep moving. This is too much.
It's like I find my girlfriend just deactivated her Facebook account, and I was like, I don't find so much utility in it anymore. You know, especially after the election, I'm like, everyone hates each other on here, and it's not fun. I already have Twitter for that. You know, but like you're saying on Twitter, you can't go on and on and on and on about how much you hate Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, so it's there's like no way to retreat. I find that I don't even use Facebook that much anymore.
I use it because my Instagram posts directly to Twitter and to Facebook. That's how I use it. But it's interesting that it shows that and the amount of people that engage. Like my Facebook is a fraction of what everything else has, and I think it's because I don't use it.
Yeah, I think algorithmically, the more you use it, probably the more it massages you to the top of a person's feed or whatever. Because that's what's annoying about Facebook is you can't put anything in order. You have no idea what you've seen already. I was just talking to someone the other day. I only have like 700 friends on there or whatever. A lot of people from college that I might have had a class with or something. And I'm like, why do the same 15 people just show up on that? I don't even interact with these people, so I feel like I'm missing a ton of stuff. And I still find Twitter is the most useful for me.
People love Facebook though for arguing. They fucking love it, man. I've gone over some political arguments that people have on Facebook. And it's like, Jesus, how do you have the time for this? Do people have other things you enjoy?
Yeah. No.
There's something about that sort of tit for tat verbal exchange, like trying to one up someone and trying to make a better point. And I feel like it's replaced sport for people. You know, for some folks, I feel like it's a game in sort of in some sort of a way, like a text-based video game or something.
Yeah, like an old text adventure or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I find the one interesting thing about Facebook that I think is worth noting is that it's typically real people with real names and real pictures. So at least they're putting themselves out there, as opposed to Twitter, kind of the anonymous nature of that. So I respect that for the most part on Facebook. But again, I agree with you. It's like no one's winning this argument. It's just a repetitive. How many times am I going to see the same thing over and over again? I've kind of just withdrawn from that entirely.
Yeah. Well, you know, I wanted to talk to you about internet controversy because when we had you on the first time, it was kind of just after your whole thing happened with this. You made this one like incredibly innocuous tweet. It was like a day without women or something like that. Silence. Like what was the tweet?
It was peace and quiet # a day without a woman.
Yeah, I mean,
which is like an Al Bundy joke, maybe.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if that happened today, nobody would give a shit. It's weird. It's like then, like it was a boiling controversy, like the first bubbles.
Say, hey, he said, I'm 2 hours behind you. Ron, you finna get your mod back, bro. OD, you finna get your mod back, bro. OD. You know what I'm saying? You finna get your mod back. He said, bro, can we play 2K18 sometime? Hey.
Right. Well, like I explained to you originally, I feel like it was partially a political hit because of the industry I worked in and all that kind of stuff. But also, like I was telling you before we started, the more I've had time to think, after all things happened, I launched a new company, I was working 70 hours a week, I had no bandwidth to really like think about what the hell happened. The more I think about it, the angrier I actually get about like how I had to go through that and watch other people also kind of go through similar things as the outrage machine just eats people and spits them out as they go along.
Well, when you stop and think about what you actually said and that what that actually caused, like that actually caused you to stop working with people.
Yeah.
Like this one silly joke. Like they don't know you. They don't know you. No, that one joke, that one thing that you said is so awful and outrageous that all of our years of collaborating, working together, trying to do projects, trying to be creative, having fun, all the conversations we've had about life and about humans and politics and men and women, those are all out the window, man. You made a joke that I find marginally offensive.
Maybe on a certain day, marginally offensive.
I don't even think it's if it was a woman. If a woman said that, like a day of like peace and quiet, a day without men, I would go, ha.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would go. I'd go, ha.
Yeah.
And I'd keep moving.
And move on with your life.
With the idea that like, oh, I gotta get this lady fired. She's a terrible person.
The only thing that I can think about is that I was at least in a position where it didn't destroy me or whatever. Like I actually am doing financially better and feel happier in what I'm doing now. So it kind of backfired on the people that were trying to do whatever they were doing to me anyway. But I feel for the people that find themselves in similar situations that don't have, and I don't, like some sort of internet clout or some sort of community that can rally around them and lift them up, which is what my community did to me, which I'm so appreciative of. So I just think about how it's just sad. Like I don't know that I've ever been so offended by something someone has tweeted or even said that I like went out of my way to make it personal and try to destroy them. I'm not saying people don't do terrible shit. It happens all the time. Right. And we're seeing that play out, with Harvey Weinstein and all these kinds of things. They're absolutely awful, really awful things.
Right.
And I feel like people are kind of like being distracted by the shiny object in the corner when they're losing sight of what's important.
Well, today it feels like there's blood in the water. I mean, it seems like there's so many people going after so many people. It's just people are running around looking for targets. The way I imagine like the internet and people on the internet being like an angry mob running through the streets, frothing at the mouth, just looking for somewhere to point their gun. I mean, that's really what it feels like. It feels like there's definitely some real targets out there.
Yeah.
There's definitely some. This Kevin Spacey thing is a scary thing. I mean, apparently Rosie O'Donnell started tweeting that he had been doing this forever, and that this is the tip of the iceberg, and there's a bunch of boys that he went after. I don't know what's true, what's not true,
right.
And I'm assuming, but that's real. That's a real horrible thing. That's not a joke. It's not someone with an innocuous, maybe off-color joke. I mean, this is like real stuff.
Right.
So I think the good part is all this awful behavior, predatory, evil, all the Harvey Weinstein and whatever else. There's probably a million other ones, right? That stuff's going to get exposed. But it seems like the negative part about it is that people are looking for targets. They're just,
Yeah, and that's what kind of scares me. I don't know if you're a Black Mirror fan, but
I've only watched one episode, but I loved it.
Okay, yeah. Well, I highly recommend you'll get lost in it.
Watch 2 episodes.
I love that show, and what's going on now reminds me a little bit of like a Black Mirror episode where like it's like people are, like you said, are targeting others, but I feel like accusations are part of the process, are part of due process. Really, that starts with the accusation. Yeah. But I feel like people aren't, and I'm not defending anything that anyone's done, but I feel like everyone just assumes guilt no matter what, and it scares me because now we're getting to the point where anyone can accuse someone of anything at all, and they're automatically guilty, and they're automatically shamed. And I'm like, but aren't you curious what's true? Maybe half or 75% of this is true, but certainly not all of this is true. Right. Certainly not all of these accusations are true. The one thing that I was interested in is Mark Halperin, who the political writer who was accused of things last week.
I didn't hear this one. There's too many to keep up with.
Yeah, no, it's happening a lot. Mark Halperin is a famous political writer. He wrote Game Change and Double Down, those famous books about 2008 and 2012, with John Heilman, who's his partner. He was on MSNBC and all this stuff. And he was accused of some sexual harassment when he was at ABC News in the early 2000s. And he came out and was basically like, I'm sorry for my behavior and all that kind of stuff. And what I thought was interesting about it was that he was like, not all of these accusations are true. But he kind of just then went on and apologized and did all this. And I'm like, but I'm interested in like, are you going to contest any of this? Like, what is true and what isn't true? Why aren't we interested in what is true and what isn't true? Clearly you are a scumbag in some way. But I'm also curious in, are you going to defend yourself? Or are we in a situation where no one can defend themselves from these terrible accusations?
Well,
and it reminds me of a Black Mirror a lot.
What were the accusations?
He was basically accused of heavily hitting on women like that were junior than him. Some
who were working with him?
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere like I don't think any of them accused him of like sexual assault or anything like that. But apparently he might have rubbed up against some women or did some things that
kind of is sexual assault,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I assume so. But I guess what I'm saying is like
on somebody that's essentially sexual assault.
Sure, I mean more like I don't think they're accusing him of raping them or something something absolutely horrifying, horrific, and I'm like, well, clearly, I liked him a lot, and I'm like, well, you're clearly not a good person, but I was also just interested in that dynamic of his statement, where I was like, but what isn't true? I'm curious what isn't true. Why, it almost suggests that everything is true, but then you just never know in these situations. So I just kind of reserve judgment until more information is known about all these people, and I don't want to jump in on it because I don't
even want to know. I mean, unless it's people that are in my world. I mean, at a certain point in time. Look, I mean, I want to know about Kevin Spacey type situations or Harvey Weinstein type situations, but I think there's a lot of men that are in the position where they're a boss or they are, the owner of a company. company and they have these people under them, and these people behave in a certain way, like almost like as if they are royalty, you know. And I think that's what Harvey Weinstein experienced. I mean, essentially, he was like the royalty of this enormous movie empire, right? And we find that particularly offensive. He's not just a creep trying to get laid. He's a guy that was trying to hold that power over people and use it against them. Then on top of it, he was like physically forceful. So you got like your worst case scenarios, and then you have like guys that are just trying to get laid. And you're like, okay, how do you? What are we demonizing aggressive heterosexuality? Like, where does this go? Like, where does this go into sexual assault? Like, rubbing up against someone, physically touching them when they don't want you to. Well, that's sexual assault.
Sure.
But hitting on someone, well, that doesn't seem like sexual assault or anything. It seems like someone just trying to get laid. Like, where does it? But then when someone's the boss, you go, okay. But then you're not supposed to do that when you're a boss.
Right. I was very interested in the dynamic between, specifically with Harvey Weinstein and his people under him for many decades.
Yeah.
I was trying to put myself in this position of like, how does this stay quiet for so long? Even though there's little rumblings, like they talk about Seth MacFarlane's joke at some award shows.
And Kevin Spacey too.
Yeah.
You know, they
and
did
Family
it on
Guy.
Family Guy.
Right.
Like a little kid was running away from someone who was locked in Kevin Spacey's basement.
It's amazing that like this stuff is kind of like an open secret, but still doesn't seep out or really. And it makes you think about the power dynamics and how fearful people are in these positions, because it's easy. My initial instinct was like, why didn't anyone say anything? It was similar to the Bill Cosby's thing. I'm like, why didn't anyone say anything? But then you realize people were saying things. They were being given hush money. They were being shut up. But these are really, really bad people. But I agree with you that you know, I've never been an aggressive flirter, as it were. I've always been very passive with women because I never really believed in myself that much and all that. But I've known people that have been very flirtatious and you know, and all that. I'm like, I wonder, what is the line there now? And is it okay to be flirtatious, to call a woman beautiful at a bar or to do something like that, as opposed to, you know, kind of do what...
If a girl likes you, that's the thing. Like, if you meet a girl at a bar, and the girl's like, Colin is a really cool guy. God, I'm so into him. And Colin's like, you're really beautiful. And she's like, oh my God, thank you. And then next thing you know, you guys are hanging out. Or you meet a girl at a bar, she has nothing, she doesn't want to have anything to do with you. She's sober, you're drinking, your breath smells. And you're like, you're really beautiful. And you're like, ew, gross, get the fuck away from me. You know, it could be exactly the same attempt, but the person's just not into you, and you become a creep.
Right, exactly. So I don't look at the situation now in 2017 with, you know, on college campuses and all these things as desirable for anyone, because who the hell knows the rules of the landscape, you know, now. I think a lot of it just comes down to mutual respect and all of that, you know?
Well, you know what I think it is, man? I really think, like culturally, I think this is a big, gigantic shift, almost like an earthquake of consciousness. I think that over the course of human history, we have slowly but surely become better to each other. Like we were playing, we had a photograph that we put up yesterday of an ad from 1911. It was a gum ad, and it was instructing a man how to go about kissing a woman. And a lot of it was like, do not ask permission, look in her eyes, gaze dreamily. It was like really like weird, like instructing him how to grab her face, how to like lean down to kiss her. It was like very, very bizarre. I was like, if you tried to put that ad out today, you would be fucking skewered publicly.
Yeah, I would say so.
Come after you. But there's the ad right there. Do you know how to kiss a girl? Then learn. Stand facing her. Do not tell her your intentions. Do not ask permission to kiss her.
Tell her your intentions.
We went over this whole thing yesterday, so I won't go over it again.
That's funny.
It's what's the name of the gum again? Common Sense. What is it?
Common Sense Gum Company.
The Common Sense Gum Company from 1911. And I think what's happening right now is this like a really big shift. And I think the beneficiaries of this big shift are going to be the next generation of kids that are growing up. They're probably not going to have to deal with nearly as much shit. I think, and I'm absolutely not giving Bill Cosby any sort of fucking excuse at all, but I think that in Bill Cosby's day, I think a lot of men did that. I think it was really common. I don't think they thought anything of it. Just like, you ever watch like an old Clint Eastwood movie where they slap women? pissed. Used to beat the shit out of women in those movies.
Times have changed.
And they're changing now, like today, at an unprecedented rate. I think ultimately it's good. Ultimately, everyone, when you catch people at like a good static state, like a good calm state, and they're not under duress and they're thinking clearly, and you'd ask them like, what's the best way to get along with other people? Well, treat them fairly, treat them kindly, have good friends, just be nice to everybody. Everybody would agree to that. The problem is maybe they want something from you, like Colin wants to fuck the girl at the bar, but she's sober and Colin's got gross breath, and he's,
Right.
But the consequences of those certain that behavior was minimized by power, right? It was minimized by, like a guy like Harvey Weinstein who put these gals in movies, or a guy like Kevin Spacey who's hitting on a 14-year-old who doesn't know what to say. All that stuff, that ability to squash, it minimized people.
It reminds me too, not that I know deeply anything deep about it, but I was just thinking about it in the shower this morning actually. It reminds me a lot of Michael Jackson in the sense of like what was going on in the early and mid-90s with him and the accusations there. And I'm like, was this, I don't know if it's true or false, I don't know what he's accused of or not. People kind of, I think, treat him as if he was innocent. Maybe he is, I don't know. But it reminds me of like, there was like telltale signs of some sexual corruption in Hollywood, in the music industry, in the movie industry and all that some years ago. That's kind of bubbled back to the surface with some big names. So I agree with you. Like, I just wish people just need to be good to each other and like act normal, and these guys and be respectful, and these things, you don't find yourself in these terrible situations. But then you see this desperation with Harvey Weinstein, where you learn that he might have sexually assaulted or even raped a woman, who then appears in a movie some years later because the gravity well around him is so strong that they have no choice. So it's a very sad situation for those women as well.
It's a sad situation for humanity, right? It's like there's just certain things that people were able to get away with, Like the Cosby thing to me is probably number one. That's the number one worst one ever, because he represented this sort of like really moral, very ethical, like doesn't swear on stage. Like he's the last one that you would expect to be what he's been described as the number one serial rapist of all time. And you're like, wait, how is that possible?
It's incredible. It's just a crazy, unfortunate, sad situation. It ruins his whole legacy. Who could ever? I haven't seen the Cosby Show. I don't even know if it's syndicated anymore since all the accusations came out. But who could watch that now and be like, and just look past that? Like I certainly, especially because a lot of that's contemporaneous to that show.
It's still on the air.
Well, I assume that they got their stuff pulled, their syndication pulled.
Right?
Yeah.
What about Fat Albert? That was weird.
Yeah. Again, contemporaneous to a lot of his accusations, going back to what was that original show that he did in the 60s? I Spy, right?
Yeah, that was the first one, right?
Yeah. So it's like I think a lot of that's like 50 years worth of accusations. It's like holy shit. Yeah.
Hollywood was a different animal back then. It was a different animal when people didn't have a voice,
But because you have a connect, you were on TV and you do do you hear rumblings like this? I mean, I'm not asking you to be specific, but do you hear?
Well,
this?
I haven't been on TV in a long time, but I did hear the Cosby thing way back in the '90s. I heard that when I was on the 7 News Radio. I remember people talking about it. But and I heard the Kevin Spacey thing too. But you don't know. It's not like, well, you should have gone to the press. Like with what information?
Right.
Like someone accused Rosie O'Donnell. Because Rosie O'Donnell was talking about Kevin Spacey. She's like, you're a sicko. Everyone knew you were a sicko. And so someone said, hold on a second. So you're saying that you knew that he was like this and you didn't do anything about it? And she said, well, there was always rumors, but no one had any evidence.
Right.
Until this actor came forward. Is he an actor or a director?
I think he's a Broadway actor.
It's Broadway actor. Yeah, it's fucked. The whole thing's fucked. He was in a television show, though. He was a Broadway actor with Kevin Spacey in whatever the hell it was when this happened 30 years ago.
What do you think about the whole misdirection thing in his statement, too, about being like,
crazy?
Weird, right?
Sneaky.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, I think very, very transparent.
Very transparent.
Yeah.
Deflecting.
Right.
Now I live my life as a gay man. Hey, fuckface, nobody asked you.
Right.
Did you try to rape a kid?
Yeah, it was very weird. I don't know why he decided to do that.
Well, I think he's probably panicking. I mean, and ultimately, he probably should be.
Yeah, I would assume so, especially because maybe there are more accusations. And then the whole weird thing with Netflix with House of Cards, where they were like, this is going to be the last season.
Now apparently they stopped production.
Oh, so they stopped it completely?
That's what Jamie was saying.
Oh, interesting.
Third this morning.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought that was interesting specifically because they apparently had already announced that it was the last season anyway, like in the summer. So they're making it seem like they're reacting to it. So everyone's just playing the PR game now, you know?
I wonder. Yeah, I don't know. Because they made an announcement pretty quickly. Maybe they made an announcement sort of just to let everyone know, yeah, it is the last season, but okay, here it goes. Production on Netflix special series suspended indefinitely following Kevin Spacey allegations. Is it allegation or S? Is this plural?
Yeah, is there a second or third allegation? I might have missed it. I'm sure.
Also, he has a Gore Vidal movie that they're filming as well.
Which will be interesting. It's an interesting guy. Gore Vidal.
Yeah, oh man, you know what's a great fucking film? Gore Vidal and who's the super conservative guy? William F. Buckley. They had a series of debates in 1960, I want to say 68, and they televised them. And it was like a huge boom to whatever network it was, ABC I believe it was. And they made a documentary about these two going back and forth with each other. It's brilliant. It's amazing. And it's so interesting to see their minds interacting with each other.
Wasn't that the debate series where William F. Buckley said something super homophobic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Called him something.
I think he called him a faggot.
Like, yeah, on like network television.
Yeah, and he said he would knock him out. He'd said something like, "You'll stay plastered" or something like that. I forget his statement, but Gore Vidal said something to William F. Buckley that really pushed his button. I don't remember what he said to him.
Because I remember watching it and being like, oh my god.
It was but it was devastating to William F. Buckley. It was like pretty much the end of his being taken seriously because people realized, well, he's kind of a fool. And his ego and his mind is just not within his control and it just got out of hand. And Gore Vidal just sort of sat there while he said it,
Right. Yeah, Gore Vidal's an interesting. My exposure to him initially was like he wrote, I think, some historical fiction about some various things.
Now listen, you queers, stop calling me a crypto-Nazi or I'll sock you in your goddamn face and you'll stay plastered.
Yeah, that's like incredible. Too.
Listen, you queer, stop calling me a crypto-Nazi. Whoa. I'm concerned the only pro or crypto-Nazi I can think of is yourself. Yeah.
Some people were calling each other Nazis even way back after, right after World War II.
Yeah, it's a weird one, right? It's like the problem is like what we saw in Charlottesville is like, hey, look guys, there's real Nazis. Like, don't call someone a Nazi because they voted for Trump,
right?
Because they think that right-wing conservative values are being diminished in this country. Don't call them a Nazi for that.
It just bothers me. The same thing with the word fascist, where I'm like, you don't even really understand what these words mean. A lot of you, like, I don't. These words aren't only loaded; they have definitions, and I don't know what the. It's like when everyone says we live in a fascist state in America today, and I'm like. Exactly, in which he actually has the power to fire the person doing the investigation. Yeah. So it's I'm not saying we're in an ideal situation right now, but people throwing around these words very loosely need to learn a little bit more about Weimar Republic and the Nazis coming to power in '33 and what that actually looks like, what fascism actually looks like in Italy, what it looks like in Germany, and they have no idea. Or some people do, but most don't, and they're just throwing these words around and they mean something.
Well, there's a lot of confusion today in terms of like why free speech is important. And one of the reasons why free speech is important is because you don't get to decide what is correct. It has to be debated. There was I forget who said that. It was really recent. We talked about it yesterday. It was that guy, the Yale professor. Crazy. Right. He said the answer to hate speech is not no speech; it's better speech, and that's such a great statement.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
It's absolutely true. You can't, so like all these kids that are trying to shut down conservative speakers on campus, and then by shutting them down, they're calling them white supremacists, Nazis, and using these names for guys like Ben Shapiro. which I think is patently ridiculous.
Yeah, the Jewish man is the Nazi.
Jewish man
That's
is
interesting.
Nazi.
That's interesting.
And a white supremacist as well, which is just like because he quotes statistics about minority crime. You know, those statistics I feel like are pretty misleading in some ways because there's a lot of factors that lead to these people being in these situations where there's high crime rates in these communities, and it has nothing to do with, you know, hey, you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like, which is like a really common way of looking at it.
Right.
Has to do with the world that they were born into.
Yeah, socioeconomically, it's a different world.
Yeah, and they're surrounded by the momentum of crime. They're surrounded by the momentum of violence and abuse, and to just expect them to escape that because there are examples of people that have done it in the past. Well, you can't apply that sort of logic, I don't think. I think that's disingenuous. But to call him a Nazi or a white supremacist, I mean, it's fucking ridiculous.
Well, it's just used pejoratively without historical context. It's exactly what it is, because it reminds me a little bit, it's different in the context, but it reminds me a little bit of when Bernie Sanders was running in the primary, and people would be like, look at what socialism has given you.
Right.
And look at the roads, and I'm like, the roads aren't socialist. The military's not socialist, streetlights aren't socialist, the government spending money is not what socialism means.
Yeah.
So if that's what you think the definition means, then you're wrong. And the same thing with now Nazism and fascism, like, look at all the parallels between Nazi Germany and the United States, and I'm like, I'm a student of history, I don't know everything, but I don't see literally one parallel between the United States right now and Nazi Germany, not even one. So
yeah, we're not coming off a war we lost. We're not, you know, a devastated and humiliated nation.
Yeah, the stab in the back, hyperinflation. Like this charismatic man who's in prison for a while writes this manifesto, tries to actually throw a coup in the mid-20s, fails. All these what parallel are you talking about? That, you know, and it's, so I just feel like people are playing fast and loose with these words that they mean something. These words mean something. So if you're gonna call someone a fascist, fine, the fascist. And like you said, there are Nazis in American culture, unfortunately, but fortunately, because of our freedom of expression, they have the right to exist. And I think that by lumping in anyone that voted for Trump, for instance, as a Nazi, you're just making them look bigger. That actually just benefits them. They're irrelevant. The KKK is irrelevant. 6,000 members, maybe, in a country of 325 million people. How many people identify as neo-Nazi, really? Maybe 10,000 or less, you know? But when you
think about 350 million people, it's a very small number.
It's infinitesimal. It's actually irrelevant, completely irrelevant.
But if you're a black guy and they're all coming after you on your Facebook page, then it looks real.
Then it looks real. And it is, that kind of badgering and that kind of harassment is real and it's terrible. No one justifies that, but I'm so sick of the history, like like people suddenly are experts. It reminds me about Columbus Day. I tweeted out, and it got tweeted a bunch. I thought it was funny where, you know, people were tweeting about Columbus and all this. I'm like, suddenly everyone's an expert now in the age of exploration today. Now everyone knows everything about the age of exploration, just like everyone knew everything about the rise of Nazism and the Weimar Republic, and just like everyone knew about the, you know, socialism and all that. I'm like, stop. You know?
Well, I posted this flag behind me, and a company named called Iron Mountain Designs creates it, and it's a veteran-owned company, and they make these pretty cool flags, very cool flags, made out of metal. But it has a George Washington quote at the back, and I put it up on Instagram with the photo of the flag, photo of the logo of the company, like 3 different pictures on Instagram in a row. You know, you do that, or one post can have 3 images. And one of them was a quote from George Washington, and the number of fucking geniuses. George Washington owned slaves. Like, yeah, he's an honest man who owns slaves. And they just kept rattling on about the horrors of George Washington. As if, okay, yep, he did. Yeah, there's a lot but this is a quote by a man who lived hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and this is what he said. You know, you want to diminish his entire, you know, contribution to human culture because he did something horrible back then when people were doing horrible things. You're right, he did own slaves, but I think it's a part of a very long conversation about what a human being was, you know, back then.
Yeah, it goes back to the idea of historical relativism, that like you can judge them based on the 21st century model, but George Washington died in 1799, so this is a man that didn't even see the 19th century, nonetheless the 20th, nonetheless the 21st, has no idea what, he was a Southern planter. 4 of the first 5 presidents of the United States were Southern planters that owned slaves. This wasn't a totally uncommon thing, so I'm not justifying it. There were absolutely abolitionists among the founders. There were absolutely abolitionists during the Revolution, and black people fought for the Continental Army. But yeah, people judging based on on these things. I'm like, that's fine, but if you want to take that to its natural conclusion, you're going to find lots of problems with lots of people, even closer to us in history than George Washington. And what's funny about that is now they really are going after, I was reading it just tangentially, I didn't see it all, but people are starting to now go after George Washington plaques or George Washington statues, and I feel kind of bad about that in the sense that I was all for removing the Confederate statues and putting them in places where they made sense. So take the Jefferson Davis statue, put it in, Gettysburg, or whatever the case might be, put it in a museum. I don't think they should be melted down and destroyed. But people were like, the next logical step is they're going to go after the founders, and I was like, no way. Well, no one's going to let that happen. I was wrong. Now they are going after
them immediately.
So I feel a little bit guilty about that in the sense that, I don't think we should be celebrating Confederate history, but we should absolutely be celebrating American history, even the complicated American history.
Even if it's not celebrating it, it's recognizing it and understanding it. I mean, the Confederate War, the Civil War, rather, did happen. It's a real historical fact, and it should be studied. And if you don't study it, you don't get a comprehensive understanding of all the pieces that were in place when it did happen. And, it's just as bad as the people that are saying, the Civil War was about economics. No, it wasn't. That was part of what it was about. It wasn't just about economics. It was also about keeping slaves.
Right.
That's a fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to diminish that, that's not good either. But to try to sweep it under the rug and smash all the statues, no, have that statue up so people can understand what the fuck that is. And if someone is going to celebrate that statue, South going to do it again, we're going to rise again. They can do that, if that's their thing, they can do that. I mean, we can't stop them from thinking stupid.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with you in the sense that it's worth, it happened, or we remember it, and it has always, the gray and blue have always been part of our culture since the Civil War ended in 1865, and especially since Reconstruction ended in 1877.
People don't even know what you're saying. The gray and blue?
Yeah, the uniforms of the different sides. When Reconstruction ended in 1877 and our occupation of the South ended, and then Jim Crow became law, and there was institutional segregation, this was something that was always a complicated point of celebration. I've always been I've always been really kind of curious and really more militant about why these people actually got away with what they did, and I understand the 10% plan. Do you know anything about that? The idea that Lincoln only made, or actually really Andrew Johnson only made 10% of people in the southern states basically pledge allegiance in order for the states to come back in. They didn't execute anyone that, or even really try them. Jefferson Davis, Stonewall Jackson didn't survive, but Robert E. Lee and all these other guys just got away with it and actually lived pretty prosperous lives afterwards. So there's always been this really complicated mix of remembrance that these people down there were heroes, and we don't have to support that. I certainly don't support that, but it goes way further back than our contemporary culture, and we can't just smash it into oblivion and think you're going to remove that, the heritage of the stars and bars and all that from what happened.
I think that the problem is people think that you're celebrating the Confederate Army when you have a statue up. And in some ways, it seems like you are, right? Because the statue is 15 feet tall, and he's got a sword in his hand, he's on a horse, and he's marching forward. And, people look at it as if that's celebrating something that's a horrible part of human culture.
It is. I mean, I remember going to Richmond, Virginia for the first time. A lot of my family lives down there now, and they have this thing called Monument Row or whatever, where it's just it's like Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee and then they actually put Arthur Ashe at the end to make it seem like it's not racist anymore, which I always thought was weird. They did that in the 70s or 80s. Yeah, exactly. So there's just like a black guy at the end of it. It's like, this isn't racist at all.
And it's a bonus that he died of AIDS.
So we have a lot of pro HIV culture and all that. But I remember being really confused when I was a kid, being like, why are these statues here? This doesn't make any sense. And I agree that they shouldn't be in those places of reverence, because they're beyond the slavery issue. And I agree with you. Slavery was the reason the Confederacy was founded. It does go back to states' rights, and it has inherent economic benefits, but it is, Stephen Douglas, who was the vice president of the Confederacy, literally said that they were founded because of this, so you can take his word for it. But I was always confused why we were celebrating these people, and why not have these pieces of art, because they are pieces of art, but have them in places that make sense, that give context. So I have no problem with that. But I was so tragically wrong about the slippery slope that we were finding ourselves on, because I thought people would see more of that. Like, yes, Thomas Jefferson was a complicated man, but also an immensely important person to our society. But people aren't seeing it that way. And I will fight more vociferously to protect those guys than I did the Confederate officers.
Yeah, for sure. Even though those guys did own slaves too, right? I mean, it is all weird when you're talking about slave ownership. You know, I did this thing this morning. My kids' school, they have this great pumpkin day, and all the kids are on stage. You know, they have this little play that they act out. And one of the things they were talking about, the smell of applewood bacon, and everybody's like, oh, the smell of applewood bacon. And all I could think of, because yesterday we were talking about factory farming and about this Glenn Greenwald article where this FBI investigation to these two people that stole these pigs from this factory farm revealed this federal cover-up of these horrific conditions in factory farms. And I was thinking of, like, one day we're going to look at, like, factory farming and the horrific nature of what they do to these animals, especially pigs. These really intelligent animals, they stuff them in these boxes and make them live in their own shit. There's little corpses of piglets around them. It was really hard. The article and the photos were really hard to look at. And I was thinking while I was watching this little kids play today, I was like, one day we're gonna look back at like this mention of bacon, and we're gonna think like, how fucked up were people that they thought it was okay to shove these little animals into these crates and make them live in their own shit just so you can get bacon off of them.
Right.
But we've just sort of accepted that. It's a part of our culture. And it's not a valid comparison to slavery, but it's also, it's not an ideal way for a conscious and evolving species like the human race to behave. It's not a good way for us to rationalize. And I was looking at that today and I was thinking, how many more of these things? I mean, I think we're seeing that with things like the Harvey Weinstein allegations and you know, this outrage that's coming forward. And we're seeing it with a lot of the aspects of our society that's getting exposed in a way that never got exposed before. But I think we're also seeing it, I mean, in my mind, we're seeing it with this talk of bacon. And I was like, you know, look, bacon is delicious. Absolutely, but where the fuck's that bacon coming from? You know? Are you making sure you're getting free-range bacon from, you know, very moral and ethical farming practices, or are you just getting bacon?
Yeah, it's actually very thought-provoking what you're saying, because I've always found the factory farming, not that I'm an expert in it at all, I'm not, but the argument to be really interesting, because it's like there's an opportunity cost. The way we treat these animals means food is very cheap.
Yeah.
Way cheaper. Meat is incredibly cheap in the United States compared to almost anywhere else in the world. And produce is too. Because of that, people used to spend 1/3 of their income before World War II on food, and now they spend less than 1/10 of their money on food. So there's
amazing.
So there's an interesting, like, so we've made food way cheaper, but you're right, because you could make the same argument for slavery in the sense that, like, well, look at all the economic benefits. So, you know, you kind of turn a blind eye to it. So you actually kind of, like, not, you kind of changed my mind on it a little bit, because I've always been of the mind where, like, free-range eggs, free-range animals, that's great if you can afford that. But I don't begrudge the poor or middle class or working class family from going and buying their ground beef from Vons.
Yeah, well, if you're poor, you got to get by.
Right.
You know, there's that, right? And you're in a system that you didn't design, you didn't create. You're in there and you're just trying to get by. I understand that. But what I'm just saying, like, as a whole, as a culture, to just openly accept factory farming and to not think of it as a horrific ethical and moral injustice. I mean, it really is. You know, this is coming from someone who eats meat, right? So obviously the vegan argument would be, well, you're complicit in it, and you're also complicit in a bunch of other horrific crimes against animals. I think that what we're looking at, though, is an awakening and sort of an understanding of our impact, like physically our impact on this, but mentally, the way we think about things, the way we even think about ourselves. If you know that your bacon is coming from an animal that was tortured and shoved into a cage, and you buy it anyway, like, ooh, you know, what does that do to your mind?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of it's a conundrum. You know, like, you obviously hunt and stuff like that, but when you buy meat, do you go out of your way to make sure that it's?
I buy almost no meat.
So you all that you eat is typically something.
Now, it's taken a few years to do it, but now, I mean, I shot 2 elk this year, and elk is, you know, they're close to 1,000 pounds.
So you're swimming in meat.
Of hundreds of pounds of meat. I have 2 commercial freezers here. I have 2 in the garage at home. I give meat out to my friends. I eat elk 4 nights a week, you know, and when I go out to dinner, though, I do eat steak. You know, if I go out to dinner at some restaurant, I don't ask where it came from.
Right.
You know, so in that way, I'm a hypocrite.
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think striving is important, right? You can't always be perfect, but being better. I think if everyone was better, as opposed to being perfect, then the situation would be better.
Yeah,
so
but
I don't think there's anything wrong with
there's a
that.
reality of there's an economic reality. I can take the time off. I can take 2 weeks off out of the year because I went on two elk hunts. I've been on 4 hunts this year, and 3 of them I was successful. I'm like on the axis deer, which is also like 100 pounds of meat, and so that's most of what I eat. But most people don't have time to take 3 weeks off a year, and you also have to have the time to practice, and you have to know people. Like, it's a lot of good fortune on my side to be able to do something like this. But it's also a concerted effort and becoming obsessed with the idea behind it of doing that. You know?
Yeah.
It becomes a different thing. It becomes like food is just a different thing. I mean, if you grow tomatoes in your garden, that food becomes a different thing.
Yeah, it's like almost spiritual in a way. Right? You have like a connection to it.
It's an overused word. Spiritual is kind of a word that's sort of been hijacked.
Sure.
But yeah.
Like Nazism.
Yeah, like Nazism. There's a little bit of spirituality is really hijacked by morons. You know, as someone says, I'm really spiritual, I see unfortunate tattoos and wooden beads and nutty talk. You know, Reiki healers. Is that they call them? Reiki?
I don't know.
Yeah, you know those people that think they can heal you by rubbing their hands above your skin.
In your aura.
You? Yeah. Is that Reiki? Is that what they call it? Yeah. But yeah, there's a completion of the cycle in lieu of a better word. There's I grow food, I grow plants and vegetables, and when I eat them, it just feels like some sort of a completion. Like it feels good, whereas it just feels like a good salad if I get it at a store.
Right. Well, it's interesting. You're almost subsistence farming in a way because you're hunting your own meat and you're growing some of your own produce. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know? But I wonder.
But I need the grid for electricity.
Right.
You know, I mean, someone's got to build the bows and the arrows I buy from a manufacturer.
You're not whittling the wood yet yourself.
Very strict tolerances. It's sort of subsistence, but there's all these companies that are involved behind creating the materials that you use to.
So it's like capitalism slash subsistence. But it's interesting because it's the point I made earlier. You're further along the path of sustainability or further along the path of some sort of righteousness in the way animals are treated and all that kind of stuff than a lot of people are. So it's a step in the right direction, right? I just wonder if people, just to play devil's advocate, again, the working class family that at the median household income of $40,000 a year, if we got rid of some of these animal practices, which are abhorrent, but if we got rid of them, you know, are they willing to pay $13 or $14 a pound for their beef?
They probably couldn't afford it. That's a real problem. I mean, it's absolutely a real problem. And I think that there's a lot of people that don't even take it into consideration. I mean, that's probably the biggest problem. That we've made this system, and everybody was born into this system. You know, obviously we didn't create it, but we're born into this system, and it took us until we're probably like, I didn't even know what a factory farming was until I was like 30. I never even heard of it. And then you hear about factory farming, and you go, wait, what is that? And you know, all these animals, they're all stuffed together, and they're like, what? I thought that farms were like animals roamed around. Like, I never even thought about it.
Yeah, it's horrific. I remember in the late 90s on TV, like on public access or on like, I think it was just on public access, you would see these like guerrilla filming sessions that these guys would go to these farms, like break in and like take all these pictures, and it was like for some animal rights activist group or whatever. And I was always familiar with it. I just never, I mean, I'm guilty of saying like I never really thought about it too deeply beyond that, sadly, because I was just, I thought about the economic realities of it, where I'm like, that this is a terrible thing and we can fix it, but we just have to have a conversation as a society of what that's going to mean for food, because the exact inverse has happened with produce, where we've figured out ways to really dramatically alter seedlings, and you know, I was just reading about Norman Borlaug, who won a Nobel Peace Prize for what he did to wheat, making wheat.
Golden wheat?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
Golden wheat.
I think that's what it is, yeah, like where the
higher protein.
Yeah, and like a higher yield, but the stalk wouldn't collapse and all that.
Right.
And he's apparently responsible for, you know, like there used to be these doomsday prophecies in the 60s and 70s. People forget that Earth.
I'm thinking of golden rice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Different thing, sorry.
It's okay. There was this. People look back at the original Earth Day, I think in 1970, when they often talk about some of the prognostications of what's happening to the Earth and all that today. But a lot of people lost sight of the fact that a lot of what people were talking about then was that we were going to die of famine, that the Earth's population was growing way too quickly, and that they would have these guesses by the late 70s, early 80s. You can go read it; it's fascinating. They would be like, by 1985, like a billion people are going to die of starvation because we can't feed everyone and all these kinds of things. That's what they were originally talking about. So there's been these pioneering heroes in agriculture that have figured it out, that have these high yield crops and all that. And we're fine with that because obviously crops, flora are different than fauna. They don't, they don't feel, they don't have, they don't have some sort of connection with them. They don't have a brain. So I understand the differences are there, but it's funny how these things have totally basically switched sides. Where now we have these high yield produce. That's great. We have these high yield ways of getting animal meat, but no good. And I think that they're different things. But does it suggest that we have to be more vegan, more vegetarian, all those kinds of things? I don't know if that's the answer. I think we have to have a complicated conversation, and maybe it comes down to this idea of cloning meat or whatever they're doing, like making meat, process these weird chemical processes to make beef that's indistinguishable from real beef. I mean, that's fine if it tastes good.
I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think it's probably going to be like these headless cows you could just grow in a lab, and just slice chunks off them or something. I mean, I don't know how they're doing this meat thing.
I don't really know either, and I'm sure it brings up a whole new slew of bioethical questions too. But
not just that, also probably health issues. It's probably, who's going to be the first person to live 10 years off of that biomeat before they figure out it causes some inoperable colon cancer?
Right.
Because your body doesn't know how to process it correctly, and it sticks to the walls of your colon and starts creating abscesses, and they have to remove your colon and make a new one with stem cells and cut you open like a fish. And who's going to ditch this new shitter inside of you?
Who's gonna be the guinea pig? Someone will be, as always.
I don't know. And again, not everybody could go hunt wild animals. And if you did, there would be no more wild animals. I mean, that's really what the great market hunting of the early 19th century. That's in the 18th century as well. I think when they started that. I think they started in the 1700s. They started hunting buffalo and antelope, and by the time the early 1900s, it was almost like completely wiped out. We had almost no animals left because it was market hunting. It wasn't people hunting like for their own personal use. It's that they didn't have refrigerators back then.
Right.
Remember? So you had to get meat, and it didn't last very long, and they would get a new supply of it constantly. And they would just go out and they would take these guys that were from the war, and they didn't have jobs, and so this was their job now. They would go out and hunt antelope and elk and deer, and then sell that meat at the market.
What's interesting too about that is that it's the human condition. It's not only like the more modern human condition. I'm reading a book, or I just read a book called 1491, which is about the condition of North and South America and Central America before Columbus. So there was Viking contact and stuff, but and they were talking about, which is I think well known to a lot of people, that the Native Americans, the Paleo Indians, wiped out tons of before, when there was literally only a few 100,000 of them, because they were overhunting them. So this cycle continues, regardless. And you even hear about that in Iceland with the Norse that lived there, where they depleted their very precious wood stock there. There's no animals, and a lot of. It's not just modern humans that are challenged by this. A lot of the woolly mammoth and all these animals were wiped out by humans. So
that's very controversial, by the way. That is there's a lot of people that believe that had to coincide because the dates coincide with the end of the Ice Age. And there's a guy that I've talked about several times named Randall Carlson, and he has some very compelling evidence that points to the possibility that it was asteroidal impact that wiped in mass. And that's one of the reasons why in certain parts of the world you could find mass graveyards of animals that were killed almost instantly.
And this was 10,000 years ago or something?
Yeah.
Interesting.
10 to 12,000 years ago. They think there's two possible large impacts that happened.
So they weren't bolides. They actually struck the. So they weren't like the Tunguska event with an explosion. They actually hit.
They think it struck the ice sheet above North America.
Oh, interesting. So there would be no evidence.
Right. Well, North America. They think that was the reason why there's this. It's a fascinating podcast to go back and listen to. And I had him on with another guy named Michael Shermer, who's a famous skeptic, and Graham Hancock, who's also a proponent of some of his ideas.
Yo.
And, they showed all these images of like these deep fissures that were cut into the land that must have been a massive amount of water over a very short period of time. And he thinks it was probably a large body that slammed into the polar ice caps, or slammed into rather the ice caps that are above. North America, somewhere around 10,000 years ago, 2 miles high of ice over much of the surface of it, and all of a sudden, boom, gone. and that's what caused the Great Lakes. I mean, the Great Lakes are essentially these gigantic glaciers that melted, and there's all sorts of features in these various landscapes that he believes point to massive amounts of water in an incredibly short period of time. And the explanation for that, and the peaks and the rises and the falls in temperature